Supremacy Games. Chapter 876-900. Chapter 876 Lady Sphinx's Surprising Generosity. Ouch, you are going to suffer, boy. Thor gave Felix a sympathetic look, knowing that the hammer's core was merged with more than 10 unique and precious materials. The shit he had to go through to get them was simply unimaginable. Master, where did you find those materials? Felix asked. I didn't find them. Thor chuckled, I simply lucked out on them during my cosmic journeys. For example, Mjolnir's handle was made out of the purest moon titanium. I found out in a pocket dimension, where it was filled with just moons. There were many other materials that ended up in my hands by trading with my peers, or taking them forcefully from civilizations who didn't know their true value. Thor concluded, all in all, you are going to have a tough time getting materials with the same value, especially in this overcrowded era. Felix couldn't help but sigh in frustration. He understood that if Thor was having trouble gathering those materials while he was a god in his era, it would be a hellish experience to do the same in this era. Although the universe wasn't fully explored yet, it was believed that more than 40% had been already covered by the Alliance, leaving the other 60% in utter darkness. New galaxies and races were being discovered every day. That aside, 40% meant that a significant number of resources had been plunged already. You don't have to freak out. Cyclope chuckled, we have yet to even decide on the weapon's design. If you listen to my suggestions, I will make sure to not make something that requires an impossible to find materials. Upon hearing so, Felix's heart was settled a bit. So, do you also want a hammer? Cyclope inquired. Since the core material of Mjolnir would be salvaged, there was no point in making another hammer again. It was better for Felix to think carefully and choose the perfect weapon for him. Hammer is good. Felix recalled his crescent battleaxe and said with a firm tone, but, I am more comfortable with an axe. Felix has had a great time with his crescent battleaxe to the point, he doubted if he could even replace it when the time comes to switch to the divine weapon. After all, the divine weapon would have taken a century or even more to make, and that's when Cyclope was given all the materials. In other words, it could take even longer depending on his speed of gathering those materials. In this time, Felix would be using mainly his crescent battleaxe since there was no weapon that's better than it besides divine weapons. Hence, he knew that if he was going to make a weapon, it better be as close as possible to his crescent battleaxe, or all that time spent on using it would have gone to waste. An axe, you also want its body made out of vines? Cyclope inquired. Yes. Felix nodded. Wovco. Do you want it to be double-edged axe or just one-bladed axe while the other side is a blunt hammer? Cyclope explained the difference for him. Double-edged is more flexible since you can strike with both sides, but one-sided blade is all-rounded. Cyclope created two holographic images of the two axes and swung them at the same time. It was clear in Felix's eyes that the forces differ, as the one-bladed axe carried more punch due to the weight of the hammer's head supporting it. In addition, the hammer side can be used as a shield to block attacks due to the thickness of the materials. Cyclope added. I see. Felix rested his chin on his palm and kept eyeing both versions of the axe. He liked the fact that two-bladed axe can help him attack with both blades, making his battle style a bit more flexible. However, at the same time he loved the idea that the one-bladed axe could be used as a defensive measure and also as a blunt weapon. Felix understood that there would be situations where cutting and piercing wouldn't be as useful as forceful blunt strikes. I think one-bladed axe will be better for my future. Felix decided firmly, it will be a bit weird to get used to it at the start due to using two-bladed axe, but I can adapt with some time. Good decision. Cyclope nodded. Even Thor was a bit happy about Felix picking the one-bladed axe since the traces of Mjolnir wouldn't be completely erased. Now, let's talk about the materials. Cyclope created a long holographic list and displayed it before everyone. Shadow satin, frost lead, electric gold, aspect lace, ancestral dragon's scales, Nature Goddess's Ancient Roots, what am I reading? Felix had no idea whether he should feel worried or not since he never heard about any of those materials. The only material that made his heart skip a beat was the ancestral dragon's scales. Just the name was enough to make him know that getting this material was going to be almost impossible. The ancestral dragon was the first dragon to be ever born in this universe. His strength was comparable or even higher than some primogenitors. For such being, every single scale was being cherished and protected by the royal family. Hell, Felix doubted if even some royal dragons had access to see those legendary scales. Yet, he was being asked to bring 10 of them? I told you the materials will not be easy to get. Thor smiled wryly as he eyed the dumbfounded Felix. I have some shadow satin, electric gold, and aspect lace. Lady Sphinx informed with a frown, I am missing the rest, though. Can they be replaced? Master. Felix's eyes widened in surprise after realizing that Lady Sphinx was planning to empty her treasury of such precious treasures for him. Don't give me that look. Lady Sphinx smiled faintly, I told you that I will take care of you after you won me 24 monoliths. Plus, those materials are just sitting in my treasury since they can be used only for forgery. Felix knew that she was saying so to make him feel better about accepting her assistance. There was simply no way those precious materials would be used for mere forgery. The rarer the materials, the more utilities it would have. Some materials are core ones that can't be changed, like ancestral dragon scales and nature goddess's ancient roots, since one will be used for the body and the other to coat it. The rest can be changed for other materials of similar properties. Cyclope responded to Lady Sphinx's previous question. I see. Lady Sphinx soon displayed a holographic list before Cyclope and informed, those are the current precious materials in my treasury, pick the ones that can be used for his divine weapon. Oh ho ho, you must really like the kid to invest this much in him. Cyclope smiled widely and began scrolling down the list. Whenever he spotted a material that could be used, he swiped it to the left. In a few moments, he reached the bottom and shook his head, you will be missing nether steel, luminous nylon, and spark cobalt. Although Lady Sphinx's treasury was rich with treasures, she was still unable to accommodate all the required materials for the divine weapon. I see, I believe nether steel can be obtained from Dwarven Empire's treasury. Lady Sphinx shared, ever since they found this type of material, they never managed to craft anything with it and decided to put it away until the day a new legendary forger arise and do the material justice. Your intel is correct. Cyclope nodded in agreement, knowing that he was the one who handed the material to his first students, hoping that someone would be able to craft a divine treasure with it. Unfortunately, all of them failed miserably, and he had no patience to spend more time teaching them his ways after realizing that they weren't truly gifted in it. Though he kept such thoughts to himself. As for luminous nylon, and spark cobalt, I can ask around and see if anyone in the circle has them. Lady Sphinx said. Thank you, Master, truly, thank you. Felix could only bow his head respectfully, knowing that Lady Sphinx didn't like it when things became emotional. Don't thank me yet. Lady Sphinx sighed, you still need to obtain the nether steel, ancestral dragon's scales, and Lady Yggdrasil's ancient roots on your own. Chapter 877 The Beginning of the Great Journey. Lady Yggdrasil will probably give you some of her original ancient roots if you used the favor. But, for the ancestral dragon's scales, you need to figure out a way to obtain them. Thor said. Felix was a bit surprised to hear that the goddess of nature was Lady Yggdrasil. But, thinking about it closely, it made sense. Nature Goddess was a title that couldn't be given wantonly to anyone. No, I want to avoid using my favors so soon. Felix shook his head, I will try other methods first. I have great rapport with her daughter and she might favor me a bit more for it. You are dreaming, kid. Cyclope chuckled, you still don't understand the true value of the ancient roots. You must have seen Lady Yggdrasil by now, right? Who hasn't? Felix nodded. In this universe, it was rare to not know the famous world tree, who carries the elvish 9 realms. That's because her size was as big as half the Milky Way. Though, the public believed that the World Tree was some primordial cosmic phenomena instead of being an actual living entity. The only thing certain was that the elves worshipped the World Tree and treat her as their goddess. They had no qualm with executing anyone who dared to speak ill about her, especially if they were foreigners in their land. Knowing her cosmic size that would put anyone in this universe to shame, how much do you think her first ever born roots are valued by her and others? When you put it like that. Felix smiled wryly, understanding Cyclope's point. Still, he wasn't planning on using his favor now for it. There was no rush since the rest of the materials hadn't been gathered yet. He wanted to keep this favor for special emergencies only. Anyway, I don't care how you get the materials, just bring them as fast as possible, so I can begin the forging process. Cyclope said. I will try my utmost best. Felix assured with a determined tone. Good, here is my address. Cyclope informed while sending him a long string of lines, deliver Mjolnir's remains swiftly. Will do. The moment Cyclope heard his confirmation, he nodded at everyone and excused himself from Felix's UVR room. The moment he left, Asna, Mistress Candace, and Nimmo teleported next to them. Although Cyclope was an honest and respectable primogenitor, it was still better to keep him in the dark about Asna's and Nimmo's identity. So, what is your plan? Asna inquired in curiosity while eyeing Felix. To gather those precious and coveted materials, a plan was a must to not waste time. After all, each material was placed in a different galaxy, that weren't close to each other one bit. Felix knew that he would be spending years on each galaxy until he managed to secure them somehow. I will start with the ancestral dragon scales. Felix decided calmly. Isn't better to start with the roots? Mistress Candace titled her head in confusion. It's better to take advantage of that lass's love for you before it evaporate due to Miss Asna. True, true. Asna's nose reached the ceiling after being complimented indirectly like this. Felix's eyelids twitched as he watched those two vixens allying against Selfie. First, I am not a monster to do that to Selfie. Secondly, Felix's expression turned serious. I have to enter Icarius Galaxy as fast as possible to gather the required natural treasures for my Devourer's 6th mark. Felix knew that he couldn't dilly-dally any longer about replacing his bloodline. His current strength wasn't to his satisfaction whatsoever. However, just because he was rushed, it didn't mean that he would do it right now without reaching his targeted mark. If he did so, he would end up regretting his decision immensely due to losing a large chunk of enhancement during the replacement. Well, the fountain bath is also going to boost your strength significantly. Mistress Candace disclosed. I know. Felix nodded, that's why I am saving it for my 5th replacement. The all-rounded enhancement is too good to be wasted on a mere 4th replacement. If Felix took the fountain bath while he was at merely 3rd stage, he wouldn't truly benefit from it that much. That's because the fountain bath didn't give equal enhancement to everyone, it depended on each person's strength and limits. Felix preferred increasing his limits first before going for it to truly not regret anything. I understand. Mistress Candace dropped her suggestion at once. It's best if you go now. Thor disclosed, I don't mind you skipping training your lightning affinity. You need to prioritize materials first. At the moment, Felix was actually traveling towards Thor's galaxy in hopes of increasing his lightning affinity after he mastered poison conversion technique. He intended to stay even a few years in his galaxy until he mastered both conversion techniques. But now? Kicking off the forgery was a priority since the process itself would take a century or more. He could do whatever he wanted then in that period. Understood. Felix nodded. Without further ado, Felix requested the Queen to change his destination to Icarius Galaxy. There are no nearby wormholes leading to Icarius Galaxy, it is advised to head to the closest civilianized galaxy and start the journey from there. Queen informed. I forgot I am in the middle of nowhere. Felix eyed Mistress Candace and requested, I will have to rely on you. It's my pleasure. Mistress Candace smiled. Traveling through the Void Realm would shorten the duration to a mere month if he still took the wormholes in his way. Otherwise, he would take at minimum 4 to 5 years even if he used all the wormholes leading to Icarius's galaxy. That's because there were only 4 wormholes leading to Icarius galaxy, and they were connected to the Witch Empire, Dwarven Empire, Metal Empire, and lastly, Sage's Empire. If it wasn't for the SG Alliance treaty of having the dragons being always connected with those 4 utilities races for protection, the dragons wouldn't even bother to link with any other galaxy. They prefer remaining in seclusion and away from other races, which was why their galaxy was on lockdown, making it impossible to access it without an approved visa. 3 galaxies, 3 races, 3 materials. Felix smiled faintly as he glanced at the sky. It's truly going to be a long journey. Chapter 878 The Angel and the Devil. Before you start your journey, don't we have dinner to attend? Asna reminded Felix with a foxy smile. Yes. Felix sighed in exasperation at the thought of having Selphie meet Asna. He knew that Selphie was a kind and a sweet girl while Asna was simply, well, a hard-to-handle sociopath. He was certain that Asna was going to bully the life out of that girl. Hey! Why are you giving me that look? Asna pouted cutely, I am not a monster, I just want to have a quick chat with her, who knows, maybe we will hit it off and become friends. Upon hearing so, even Felix's masters looked away speechlessly, feeling like they were listening to the devil preaching that he was an gentle angel. Bastards! Asna cursed under her breath while warning Felix one last, I expect to meet her tonight. I will see what I can do. Felix replied with a heavy sigh. Some time later, Felix could be seen wearing his casual clothes while sitting in the same table next to 2 absolute goddesses. Thank God I booked the entire restaurant and hired only AI bots. Felix sweated a little while eyeing those 2 stunning beauties sizing each other with curious looks. Asna was wearing a scarlet short dress that was embedded with tiny shimmering diamonds at belt and neck, it matched well with her scarlet hair that was falling over her shoulders. As for her Selphie, she was wearing a white traditional elvish dress that was available only for royalty. With her golden wavy hair and ocean blue eyes, she truly resembled a queen that would make kingdoms wage wars over her hand. On the other hand, Felix was dressed like a beggar. Well, he wasn't really dressed that badly, but when sitting next to those goddesses, he truly got overshadowed. Aren't you girls a bit overdressed for a causal dinner? Felix coughed. Oh my! I don't think I am that overdressed. Asna covered her mouth while glancing at her breathtaking dress, this is my usual day-to-day outfit. The tenants merely ate popcorn silently, not bothering to even comment at Asna's shameless humble bragging. It really looks gorgeous on you. Selphie complimented with a sincere smile. No, your dress looks even more beautiful, it makes me ashamed to meet you this causally. Asna replied with an honest smile too, making Felix want nothing but to bend her and spank her for misbehaving like this. She was clearly being sarcastic and trying to make Selphie feel awkward. Asna is really going hard on her. Poor thing. Do you think she can handle it? Well, if she is going after Felix, she better be tough enough to deal with Asna's b***ness. The tenants conversed with each other akin to watching a soap opera. I apologize for making you feel that way. Selphie apologized with her head bowed. It's ALR. Before Asna could feel pleased at her small victory, Selphie carried on with a bitter smile. As the only heir to the Elvish 9 realms, my personal tailor doesn't allow me dressing casual public dresses like yours. The moment she finished, neither Felix nor Asna managed to utter a single word. Felix kept staring at Selphie with a dumbstruck expression, like this was the first time he was meeting her. As for Asna, her mind went absolutely blank after hearing the last sentence, it was too deadly and destructive, it kept resounding continuously in her mind. Alas, Selphie was going for the kill. She sighed in exasperation and continued on, in fact, this is the closest dress I have that makes me look less royal, either this or my battlesuit. Oh my days, this is an absolute violation. Felix exclaimed in shock, not daring to believe that gentle and kind Selphie had this much violence in her. Did I say something wrong? Selphie tilted her head cutely in confusion after seeing Felix's shocked expression and Asna's deadpan appearance. When Felix heard so, he realized that he misunderstood Selphie. She never meant what he said in a harmful or sarcastic way like Asna, she simply expressed her thoughts a bit too honestly. Cough, no, we are just feeling sad that you aren't free to dress what you want. Felix replied swiftly while kicking Asna in the foot under the table. What he said? Asna said with a kind smile the moment she woke up from her daze. Felix knew that she was up to something horrible as there was no way she would let Selphie's remarks slide like that. Alas, he could only keep his mouth shut and brace himself. If there is someone we should feel sad about it is you. Selphie sighed, I am truly deeply sorry for the ways things ended up in your last game, that shouldn't have happened to either you or your teammates. Don't worry about it, I have already moved on. Felix smiled. That's good to hear. Selphie sighed in relief. This made Felix develop some good feelings for her as he could see that she was truly worried about his sake. Though, he still saw her no more than a friend. So, have you decided on which date you will visit my realm? Selphie inquired. Not yet. Felix shook his head, fair warning, it will be a while. Oh, I thought you will prioritize receiving the fountain bath as soon as possible. Selphie titled her head, aren't you planning on replacing your bloodline soon? How did you know? Felix raised an eyebrow in surprise at her guess. Well, it's really not that hard to deduct. Selphie clarified with a charming smile, I believed that after suffering such a loss, you will attempt to replace your bloodline to boost your foundational strength. Correct me if I am wrong on this one, but I thought that you will prefer receiving the all-rounded strength enhancement from the fountain bath before you replace your bloodline. Selphie paused to gather her thoughts. Based on my studies on your human bloodline system, your utilization of ancestral bloodlines, and sudden massive empowerment after each replacement, I figured out that the stronger you are when you replace your bloodline, the greater the strength boost received. In other words, your body can't handle the true enhancement boost from the ancestral bloodlines and limit it for your safety. Selphie smiled with an honest expression and asked, is my deduction somewhat correct? Felix was left at loss for words, not able to answer her question. He didn't think that Selphie would be sharp enough to connect the dots and figure out almost everything related to his bloodline path. But then, he recalled that she was a 4-elemental spellcaster with mastery over time runes. If she was smart enough to understand and master even those complex runes, it should be normal for her to reach such a conclusion after digging some information about him. You are correct. Felix complimented, not bad at all. It's nothing, I just studied here and there. Selphie blushed a little. I never thought that high elves had such interest in humans' cultivation system. Asna narrowed her eyes at her after seeing her trying to act cute before them. You are right, meeting and fighting Felix made me quite curious about their system and especially his own unique path. Instead of getting embarrassed by being called out, Selphie actually admitted it with an honest tone. It looks like Asna have met her match. Thor chuckled, it's hard to shame her when she is this honest with herself. Asna started to realize this fact too. How could you make fun of someone who wasn't able to pick up sarcastic comments at all? It was the same as speaking with a pure soul, who had yet to get mistreated in his life. She is really a rare breed. Felix sent a telepathic message to Asna as he eyed Selphie in wonder. Tisk, she is a princess all right. Asna clicked her tongue in annoyance, no one must have even glanced at her in a wrong way before. I will make sure to crack that veil of innocence from her. You are really the incarnation of the devil. It's for her own good to not get bullied in the future. At this point, you are the only one bullying her. Not listening. If my deduction is correct, why aren't you prioritizing traveling to my realm? Selpha brought back the previous subject after realizing that Felix and Asna were conversing telepathically. She knew that they were in an official relationship, and it was normal for them to converse telepathically, but it didn't mean that she liked it. I have some matters to handle in Icarius Galaxy. Felix shared, though, I intend to head to the realm after I deal with them. Although Selpha seemed pure and genuinely trustworthy, Felix still wasn't comfortable letting her know about his devourer's heart and constant need for natural treasures. Do you require assistance? Selpha proposed with a hopeful gaze. I have great connection with the White Dragon clan, their heir is a close friend of mine. Chapter 879 The Angel and the Devil LL. Hell no. Asna glared at Felix after seeing that he was actually considering her offer. Babe, it's the heir of the White Dragon clan, one of the 4 major clans in the royal family. Felix said with a serious tone, she can be my way in the royal family to seek a method to obtain the ancestral scales. Felix knew that the reason the dragon's royal family didn't have a name was due to its peculiar structure. Instead of having an emperor or an empress and their family members, the dragon's royal family consisted of 4 major clans. The Red Dragon clan, the Black Dragon clan, the White Dragon clan, and the Green Dragon clan. To envil those clans rule over all the dragons around the universe. However, there could never be peace with 4 leaders acting at once. Hence, after a century passes, the current Elder Dragon was required to battle a challenger for his throne. The challenger naturally arises from within those 4 clans. If the Elder Dragon won, he could keep his position for the next 100 years. If he lost, he gets degraded to the position of his clan elder while the challenger becomes the new Elder Dragon. Anyhow, obtaining solid connection with those 4 major clans wasn't an easy task. Look at her eyes, she is clearly not planning to help you from the UVR but actually meet you there. Asna mumbled in annoyance. You are worrying too much. There is no way Lady Yggdrasil or the elvish officials will allow their only heir to leave their realm. Felix shook his head. Heir or not, the universe's dangers didn't discriminate. I would love to meet this friend of yours. Felix smiled. You agree? Selpha's eyes widened in happiness. Agree about warehouse. Give me a second, I will go pack my stuff right now. Too excited, Selpha ignored Felix's question and logged out before their eyes. Speechless, Felix could only stare at Selpha's empty seat, not daring to turn around and look at Asna. He could feel her fuming dreadful eyes, boring a hole through his cheek, making him understand that he had eat up big time. I can explain. You bastard! I will kill you! Alas, Asna was too pissed to listen to his excuses as she jumped on him akin to a drunken crazy woman and started hitting him in the chest with her purse. This is domestic abuse! Felix cried out loud. You better call her and tell her to *ck off as far as possible. Asna threatened while giving Felix a death stare. You know damn well I can't do that. Felix retorted while holding her arms to stop her abuse. It will make me look like I am playing with her, trust me, she doesn't have permission to travel outside. She is purely acting on excitement. Felix was still adamant that Selpha wouldn't be given permission to visit the Icarius Galaxy. He knew that she was crushing over him hard, making her make such a rapid and irrational decisions. But, when her crazy plan get noticed by Lady Yggdrasil or the Elvish Queen, she would be stopped immediately. For your ball's sake, you better be right. Asna threatened one last time while standing up. I am right, I know I am right, just chill out for a bit. Felix fixed his outfit while returning to his seat. With being this worked out, I guess you are starving. Screw you, spicy chicken wings with rice and fries. I bet you wouldn't have ordered this if Selpha was still here. Felix mumbled under his breath while scrolling down the menu. Bastard, you really want to get a beat down. Asna gave him a death stare but didn't act on it, knowing that he was right. In a few minutes, both of them had 2 buckets of fried chicken and table full of side dishes. While they were feasting on their food, Selphie was in a heated discussion with Lady Yggdrasil about her sudden interest in heading towards Icarius Galaxy. As Felix anticipated, it wasn't going well for Selphie. "Girl, I have never been interested in romance or such nonsense, but even I know that showing you're desperate for his love is a major red flag." Lady Yggdrasil frowned as she chided Selphie. "You haven't seen his girlfriend in person." Selphie bit her lips as she retorted, "Even I felt attracted to her, there is no way he will give me time if I don't take such drastic measures." The moment Asna was introduced to Selphie, her mind went absolutely blank for a few seconds due to her destructive beauty. To worsen it, Asna went all out in her dress and style, making her resemble a diva coming for the kill. If it wasn't for Felix acting up to wake her from her daze, she would have embarrassed herself before Asna. Ever since then, she knew that stealing Felix from Asna was going to be even harder than understanding the time element runes. When Lady Yggdrasil saw that Selphie wasn't planning on taking a no for an answer, she could only sigh in exasperation. "You are going to get hurt badly." "I don't care." Selphie said with a resolved look, "He already rejected me once, what's even worse than that? As they say, you can't kill what's already dead. If only you displayed this kind of determination in learning about time runes, you would have already mastered 20% of them." Lady Yggdrasil's lips twitched at the sight of her daughter's fanatic expression. She knew that elves could get easily obsessed if they wanted something badly, but this was definitely not going to be healthy for her in the long run. "Whatever, you can go if you managed to convince Alfreda." Lady Yggdrasil waved her hand in annoyance. "But Mom, Big Sis will definitely block me." Selphie gave her a puppy look. "Can't you talk to her? She listens to all your commands." "That's your problem to solve." Not planning to entertain her any further, Lady Yggdrasil kicked Selphie out of the royal garden. Selphie could only sigh helplessly and walk back to her room, knowing that if she wanted to convince the current queen, she would need a good damn excuse. "I can do it, as long as she doesn't find out about Felix." Selphie knew that if the queen got a whiff of her crush on Felix, she would be banned from seeing him again. It wasn't because he was a man but simply due to his race. It was known universal-wide that Queen Alfreda hated nothing more than the human race. No one knows if she was simply being racist or something horrible happened to her that was related to humans. Whatever it was, Felix would never get her approval even if Selphie spoke of him as the best human to ever exist. A few minutes later, Selphie could be seen walking towards a humongous oval milky white gate that was guarded by 2 fair-skinned elves in green armor. The armor was made out of green vines and leaves, making them appear one with nature. When they saw Selphie walking towards them, they lowered their heads and pushed the gate wide open for her. "Thank you." Selphie nodded politely and stepped inside. What came before her was a vast throne chamber that was vibrating with life and exuberance. Everything was colorful and well lighted, making anyone wonder if this was an actual meditation room instead of a throne chamber. There were 2 thin long rivers running at the sides of a yellow carpet made out of golden wheat. The rivers were filled with colorful and unique-looking fish, which were swimming back and forth. The ceiling was a glass dome that allowed direct contact with the sun, feeding the mesmerizing trees and flowers situated all over the throne chamber. Naturally, there were birds nesting on those trees and paying rent with their pleasing chirps that made chamber extra lively. At the end of the chamber, a giant white tree was in the middle. Inside the trunk, there was a perfect natural-made hole that had a single big green pillow. The woman sitting on it would make souls escape from men's bodies if it meant being able to get close to her. If Selphie could be thought of as an innocent gorgeous angel, then this woman would be seen as a natural-born goddess. This was Alfreda Olafil, the queen of the 9 elvish realms and one of the 10 rulers of the SG Alliance. Chapter 880 The Angel and the Devil LLL. "What brings you here, Selphie?" Queen Alfreda smiled kindly like she was talking to her little sister, not displaying her overbearing authority one bit. She could only act this informal due to them being all alone in the chamber, elves take traditions and formality even stricter than humans' royal families. I would like to volunteer as the Furlund ambassador in the upcoming heirs ceremony in Icarius Galaxy. Selphie wished. What got you this interested in representing our realm? Queen Alfreda raised an eyebrow in surprise. She knew that Selphie was interested in nothing than understanding the runes. After I returned from the Ancestors event, I realized that I'm missing countless interesting experiences in my life. Selphie smiled as Felix's face surfaced in her mind. I would rather not regret not living my life to the fullest when the times come for my coronation. I am glad you realized this sooner. Queen Alfreda smiled with a pleased expression. So, am I allowed to go? Selphie's cute ears perked up in happiness. I don't mind sending you as the head of our delegation, but isn't the ceremony still a few years ahead? Queen Alfreda frowned. I don't think it will be proper to be this early. I know, but I intend to stay with Anastasia. Selphie replied, it's been a long time since we have met in the real world, and I think it's improper that I haven't visited her even once when she has visited me numerous times. I see, you have truly matured. Queen Alfreda was gratified to hear her reasoning. So, I can tell that you are eager, but still, give me a few days to prepare for your send-off. Queen Alfreda smiled, as the heir to the 9 realms, we can't just put you in a spaceship and send you on your merry way. As mentioned, the elves take their traditions and formality too seriously. In other words, the entire universe was going to hear about this. Usually, Selphie would have resisted hard against such irritating formalities, but at this moment, she was just happy that she was given permission to leave in the first place. Thank you, big sis, I promise I won't bring shame to the realms while I am away. Selphie waved her hand and sprinted outside the throne chamber, returning to her room to pack up her stuff. She is a bit too excited. What happened exactly in the ancestral gathering? Queen Alfreda was still somewhat skeptical. Curious, she opened the stream replay for the event and started watching the first game that Selphie participated in. Not planning to waste time, she kept speeding up anything unrelated to Selphie. Soon, she reached her battle with Felix and watched them going at each other hard. As expected of those emotionless barbarians. Queen Alfreda's expression turned cold as she watched Felix beating her little sister to plump. Still, she refrained from commenting any further and continued watching until the end of the fight. When she saw how Selphie treated Felix's wounds, she didn't think much of it. After all, most elves couldn't resist seeing a wounded life form before them without trying to heal them. Queen Alfreda was like that in her youth too. What's going on here? Black lines started to appear on Queen Alfreda's forehead as she started to witness a drastic change in Selphie's interest in Felix. Now, Selphie's eyes were almost always on him, the way she was looking at him had changed too. Queen Alfreda knew that look as she had experienced it when she was young and could never forget the harm it caused her. I must be mistaken. Queen Alfreda shook her head. Fate isn't cruel enough to repeat the same misery I went through for my little sister too. Right. Queen Alfreda murmured while zooming on Selphie's gleaming eyes that reflected Felix's stunning face. Guardians, go with Selphie as her bodyguards and keep a close eye on her. Queen Alfreda's command echoed in the silent empty throne chamber. Your will is our command. Your will is our command. Your will is our command. Yet, 3 replies resounded harmoniously, coming out of nowhere. If someone tracked each voice individually, he would notice that they actually came from a fish, a bird, and a tree. There were hundreds of birds, trees, and fish in the throne chamber. God knows if all of them were guardians hidden in this manner or just a few disguised within nature. If she met that boy, inform me immediately. Queen Alfreda ordered coldly one last time before closing the stream. Oblivious to any of this, Selphie had left the packing to her servants and returned to her dinner date with Felix and Isna, finally realizing that what she did wasn't proper at all. I am so sorry. Selphie bowed her head apologetically towards Felix and Isna the moment she appeared before them. It's all right, we have taken a quick bite while you were away. Asna smiled kindly while wiping the side of her lips with a napkin. Yes, what she said. Felix's eyelids twitched at her shameless dignified act. Just a few seconds ago, she was shoving chicken wings and legs down her throat with him, creating a mess on the table. If it wasn't for that second of delay when the body get constructed, they would have been caught red-handed with greasy fingers and sauce on their lips. Felix didn't really care since he sees Selfie as a mere friend, but Asna would have committed a suicide if her goddess appearance was ruined before Selfie. Phew, I thought you will think badly of me. Selfie sighed in relief. That won't happen, so, did Lady Yggdrasil approve? Felix with a faint confident smirk while giving Asna a side glance. My mother agreed right away. Selfie nodded with nose and eyes crinkled in happiness. See, hey. Felix's confident grin was stiffened the moment his brain registered what Selfie had said. She agreed, of course she did. Asna smiled kindly while eyeing Felix's crotch with a hidden glint. I am happy for you. Wait, how about the queen? The officials. Felix started to sweat while crossing his legs together at the thought of his jewels being targeted by that sadistic queen. It was a bit tricky to deal with Big Sister, but I am lucky the Dragon Heir's ceremony will be occurring soon. Selfie giggled as she boasted, I have convinced her to let me get sent as our realm ambassador to spectate the ceremony. Smart, isn't she so smart, my dear Felix, to think of that? She is. Felix didn't dare to look at Asna, knowing that he was going to suffer the consequences of his confidence after the dinner ends. I will be leaving in a few days. My journey will take 15 days at best due to being near the wormhole connecting with their capital planet. Selfie asked with a worried tone, how about you? She knew that if he wasn't nearby any of those 4 major connecting wormholes, he would take months or even years. You don't have to worry about me. Felix smiled, I will be traveling through the Void Realm. Ah, I forgot. Selfie eyed him enviously, how convenient. When you arrive at the capital Zuham, send me the meeting location. Felix requested. He didn't care any more about pissing off Asna. He knew that she had already reached her boiling point and nothing would defuse her. Will do. Selfie assured. Now that we got that out of the way, what do you want to eat? Felix asked while displaying the menu. I will eat anything you order for me. Selfie blushed a little. You heard her, Felix. Asna stood up elegantly and expressed, I am feeling bloated, so I will be leaving you for now. Felix was surprised by her desire to leave, he knew that she must have been upset, but he didn't think that it would allude to this. Knowing that he couldn't remain alone with Selfie while she was upset, Felix decided to cut the dinner short and leave with her. However, just as he wanted to stand up, Asna placed her hand on his shoulder and forced him to remain in his seat. Then, Asna placed her other hand on Felix's chin and leaned closer to his face. Under the stunned looks of Selfie, Felix, and the spectators, Asna kissed him softly in the lips. She didn't leave it at that, no sir, she pried his lips wide open with her tongue and intertwined it with his tongue for a split second. Pta anvil, that was more than enough to send a paralyzing electrical shock through Felix's entire system, making him blank out instantly. Then, Asna pulled away from him and gave a bewitching smile while their lips were still connected with a thin line of saliva. Please stay and entertain your friend. Asna winked at them both before disintegrating into light particles. Chapter 881, Choosing a New Bloodline. After she was gone, deafening silence befell in the restaurant. Selfie kept her widened eyes affixed on Felix's wet lips, feeling like her heart was about to burst apart. This was the first time she sees a kiss happening before her, it just had to be her crash tonguing down on his girlfriend. She is really the incarnation of the devil. Thor sighed sympathetically as he eyed the shell-shocked Selfie. How can she do that while emphasizing the term friend before her? As expected of Miss Asna. Mistress Candace smiled happily, she has really done her dirty. The tenants knew that there was absolutely no recovery from that. Asna had established before Selfie that Felix was her man and property. Damn, to worsen it, she left them after doing so. Hormungandr smiled wryly, it's like telling her that she wasn't a threat whatsoever. The tenants knew that in this round, Asna had emerged victorious. 15 minutes later, Felix could be seen sitting with Asna on the couch, having a serious and silent stare-off. He had to cut the dinner short after the violence that Asna inflicted on Selfie. Although he loved the kiss, and would have preferred if they kept on it for even hours, he still felt that it was too much for poor Selfie. She was too pure and immature to have her heart get dealt such a massive blow. So, he apologized for Asna's behavior and promised her with another dinner. As for Asna, she had absolutely zero remorse for what she had done. What? Don't tell me you intend to take her side. Asna looked away, too annoyed by the whole situation. Although Asna was the most beautiful girl in the entire universe and every single man desired her, she still got jealous of Selfie and a bit threatened by her. Beauty was one thing, but mentality was another. Asna must definitely fear of losing Felix to anyone even if that was unimaginable. Take her side? Never. Felix shook his head, still, what you did was improper. I don't care, I will do it every time I see her. Asna said stubbornly. I can't stop you, but... Felix shrugged his shoulders while standing up. Then, he went and sat next to her with a faint grin. Just like I have no issues with you kissing me whenever you like, I expect you to be the same. The moment Felix finished, he closed her lips with his, not waiting for her to even retort against his reasoning. Uprick. Asna resisted at the start and tried to push him away, but Felix kept attacking her lips and tongue, making her lose strength in her arms slowly. Her mind felt fuzzy while her eyes turned hazy due to the heat rising from within. The kiss was simply too passionate and hot for her to handle. When she realized that it was hopeless, she gave up and closed her eyes, sinking in the pleasure. All right, this is getting harem. Hormungandr turned off the connection after seeing that things were getting too heated. Damn you old snake! It was just getting good. Thor cursed in irritation while throwing his wine jar at him. Pity. Mistress Candace also sighed in disappointment as she was eager to see them going at it. Too bad, Lady Sphinx and Hormungandr were against it. Thor could easily peep on them if he wanted, but even for him, it would be too creepy to watch them alone. In the end, they broke their gathering and went to do their own things. As for Felix and Asna, they were still making out passionately on the couch, and it looked like they weren't planning on stopping anytime soon. The next morning, Felix and Asna could be seen cuddling in her mansion while watching a movie in his consciousness space. Unfortunately for Felix, last night didn't end with anything beyond second base. Still, he was happy with being able to hug Asna and kiss her whenever he liked without her being all timid and defensive. At the moment Mistress Candace was traveling towards the closest wormhole that would bridge the chasm between them and Icarius Galaxy. Hence, the reason he was hanging with Asna in the consciousness space. Felix, stop spooning. It's time for your math and physics lessons. Unfortunately for them, Lady Sphinx wasn't concerned with their romance or cuddling. The only thing she was focusing on at the moment was making Felix master those two subjects. She wasn't joking when she has sworn that she would teach him in a month. Sigh, coming. Felix sighed in frustration while pulling away from Asna. There was no way he was going to reject Lady Sphinx's teachings even when believed that physics and math weren't really that useful in battles. The fact that you think this way is another reason why you need to master them. Lady Sphinx said calmly. I have never seen anyone using them before. Felix retorted while sitting next to Lady Sphinx. That's because they are just as dumb as you. Lady Sphinx smacked him in the head with a ruler for talking back. She is right, you know. Thor supported, the stronger the foes you face, the more precise your attacks needs to be. Having a perfect understanding of physics and math will help you in your accuracy significantly. There is a huge difference between someone throwing a projectile by mere eyesight and another by calculating all elements affecting the projectile. I see. When put like this, Felix realized that he was indeed going to benefit immensely from those two subjects, especially, when his senses and cognitive reasoning were enhanced significantly. Now, that he saw an actual use of them, he paid more attention to Lady Sphinx's lectures. On the other hand, Lady Sphinx didn't care if he actually was going to use them or not. She simply didn't want him to remain ignorant about such basic subjects. She couldn't handle another embarrassment before her peers. After Felix finished with his session, he sat before a whiteboard that had multiple elements on them with the name of their primogenitor written next to them. Felix had finally decided that it was time to choose a bloodline. He understood that the moment he reached Icarius Galaxy, he would devour a shitload of natural treasures and enter one of the longest slumbers in his life. When he wakes up, he must have already his new element at 100% affinity to start the integration as fast as possible. Have you decided yet? Asna asked while sipping a cup of tea next to him. No. Felix shook his head. Since last night, he had been spending hours staring into those bloodlines and contemplating which one would be the perfect choice for him. Replacing Cow's bloodline was a big deal. Void abilities were simply too godly, and if his foundation were stronger, he wouldn't have given up on them at all. Although he was given list that included 3 Lord Primogenitors, who were confirmed dead as well. Felix had to ignore them for now since Lady Sphinx wasn't certain yet if she could help him secure their elemental manipulation. That's because their inscriptions were simply too complex compared to poison, lightning, fire, and other common elements. In other words, even if he had chosen a rare element and the primogenitor found no problem with passing along his manipulation, Felix's body wouldn't handle such a complex inscription sealed with the other two. To not risk his life, he was told to focus for now only on uncommon and common-based element primogenitors. I have lightning, so I don't need wind, I am mobile enough. Felix glanced at the water element and murmured, on other hand, water can act as a conductor for my electricity and also give mass to my poison. Felix knew that water would dilute the potency of his poison, but at the same time, it would make it extremely hard to handle it. For example, fire was poison ultimate nemesis since it could evaporate it immediately, but if his poison was placed in water, it would be a different story. Those were the only 2 primogenitors with common elements that were both dead and also had the highest chance of bestowing him their elemental manipulation. I am not feeling it, though. Felix scratched his head in frustration and eliminated water element again. Sure, water element would work well with his elements, but Felix felt that he required an element that had its main form as solid. Like earth element, plant element, ice element, metal element, etc. His lightning element was energy-based, and his poison element was in a gas/liquid state. He believed that an element with a solid state would boost his defenses immensely while also working well with his other elements. Now that he wouldn't have Void Realm as a crutch to lean on, defensive element was out of utmost priority. Alas! Almost all primogenitors with these kind of elements were alive. Ice would have been perfect. Felix thought out loud while eyeing the list. Felix always had his eyes on ice element ever since he heard that Fenrir was part of his master's faction. Chapter 882, Choosing a Bloodline LL. However, because Fenrir wasn't dead but simply in hibernation within his own ice world, Felix knew that getting his elemental manipulation was out of options. In fact, if his masters requested, he had no problems with using his bloodline even if it meant that he wouldn't be getting his elemental manipulation. After all, Fenrir was their brother, and he felt that it was his duty to at least get them together after such a long time. But they never made such request. Or they hesitate because they don't want me to waste a spot for another elemental manipulation, or because they aren't ready yet to meet him. Felix thought as he glanced at his masters, who were playing chess. He was informed about the bad blood between his masters and Fenrir before. Well, it was a bit much to call it bad blood, but they definitely weren't in the best of terms. His masters had reached their limit and given up on life, leaving Fenrir to fend for himself against the Darkin faction. They could be excused since they believed that the Darkin faction would kick the bucket too eventually. Sadly, the illusion primogenitor intervened and rescued all primogenitors from their crippling depression. When they were feeling all vigorous and better, there was no way they would miss such a free opportunity to take down Fenrir. Thankfully, Fenrir had activated his defensive protocol that encased him in an unbreakable ice world. It was cold enough that even the primogenitors would get frozen solid instantly if they were touched by the chill he was releasing. Ever since then, Fenrir was slumbering within that star-sized ice world. Felix truly wanted to free at least a wisp of his consciousness, but he couldn't do so without his master's permission. "What do you think?" Thor asked as he moved a pawn forward. "He is really into ice element," Jormungandr replied. "It will be really astonishing if he has gotten ice manipulation too." Thor chuckled, "He will be truly carrying the hopes and weight of our faction alone." "Jokes aside, I think we need to reunite with Fenrir." Jormungandr smiled bitterly, "We have to get him out of the ice eventually. I think it will be better to tackle our differences before then." "I agree, I am not really ready yet to see him again after what happened, but I doubt I will ever be ready." Thor sighed. "I am all in favor of awakening Fenrir, but I prefer if it didn't mess with Felix's future." Lady Sphinx interjected composedly, "He can't afford to lose another manipulation, especially, when we don't know the limit yet of the bloodlines he could contain." So far, everyone believed that Felix could hold 7 types of bloodlines in his 1% human bloodlines just like the rest of bloodliners. Whether he could go for more or even struggle to reach that number wasn't known yet. No one could truly be certain about it since Felix was the first human to tread on this path. In addition, the primogenitor's bloodlines were trickier to deal with than the usual bestial bloodlines. In conclusion, the fog would clear out only when Felix reaches the 6th stage of replacement. "I understand all of that." Jormungandr nodded in agreement. "Still, we can't leave our brother in eternal slumber when we have the option to wake him up." Thor frowned. "That's why I suggest that we wake him up using another body," Lady Sphinx suggested. Jormungandr and Thor were surprised by her proposal. Since other humans can integrate with primogenitor's bloodlines just fine, then it's safe to assume that Fenrir's wisp of consciousness will wake up after the bloodline get 99% integrated. Lady Sphinx clarified, "I can extract the wisp of consciousness and transport it into Felix's consciousness space without him needing to integrate with a single bloodline drop." "I never thought of that." Thor raised an eyebrow in surprise. "It's more than possible, it's doable," Lady Sphinx confirmed. Ever since Lady Sphinx found out that integrating with 99% of a primogenitor's bloodline can awaken a separate wisp of consciousness, she always thought of many useful possibilities that weren't related to Felix at all. She even thought of using slave bloodliners to integrate with dead primogenitors' bloodlines to extract memories from them. Primogenitors' memories equals new knowledge. Lady Sphinx was truly too thirsty for any type of knowledge. Still, she didn't act upon her devilish plans since it was a breach of trust with her peers. Although they were dead and wouldn't know what she did, she would know about it. Anyhow, her experiments were paused due to her morals, but she still discovered many other interesting facts. One of them was this unique strategy. Though, if we did so, doesn't that mean the human will unlock Fenrir's ultimate ability? Jormungandr frowned. "I am all down for allowing Felix get my ultimate ability, but I don't feel too thrilled with having random humans own my brother's ultimate ability." "Same." Thor nodded, especially without his permission. Ultimate abilities were the most precious thing to any primogenitor. There was no way Fenrir would accept having his ultimate ability get inherited by some nobody. At least, if it was Felix, he would be backed by his masters. "We can just force him to edge another ice ability and replace his bloodline." Lady Sphinx shrugged her shoulders, "I don't care even if we killed him to not waste time." "I don't mind either." "Same." The 3 primogenitors absolutely didn't give a shit about other human lives. At the end of the day, they were still primordial beings and humans were just ants before them. Felix wouldn't like that though. Thor scratched his beard in irritation. He might be guilt-tripped if he found out about it. I can already see it happening. Jormungandr sighed. So, no killing. No, think of something else. How about we use his friends then? Thor suggested. He has already given Fenrir's bloodline to that boy Noah and girl Sylvia. Still, they will also unlock Fenrir's ultimate ability. Lady Sphinx shook his head. Even worse, they will not be able to replace it since they have already reached 6th stage of replacement. In other words, they will have it permanently. Still, that Noah kid might be liked by Fenrir. Their deposition is exactly the same. Jormungandr chuckled. They both consider words as a limited resource. I feel the same. How about we do this? Lady Sphinx proposed. We will awaken Fenrir within the kid. He will decide if he doesn't mind leaving his ultimate ability behind. What if he rejected? We can extract his ultimate ability using the genome needle I am developing for Felix. If the kid wanted, we can replace it with another ability from a different bloodline. Lady Sphinx said. If it's like this, then I am up for it. Thor agreed. Same. Jormungandr nodded. When we bring Fenrir with us, we can convince him to put down his weapon and rest with us. Just like them, Fenrir was also suffering from depression in his days. The only thing that kept him going was his unwavering hate towards Manananggal. If he wants Manananggal dead, he needs to pass the baton to Felix. Neither Fenrir nor them were capable of slaying Manananggal even if he had remained standing before them. They knew that he had trillions of blood drops spread throughout the entire universe. Each blood drop represents a new rebirth. He wasn't called the true immortal for no reason. On the other hand, Felix had a slight chance of maybe killing him once and for all. Unlike them, his potential was limitless. The fact that he could learn all kind of peculiar stuff would enable him to figure out a method of getting rid of Manananggal. Even if the chance is merely 0.0000001%, it's higher than our 0% chance. Thor said with a hopeful tone. Let's inform Felix first and see what happens. Who knows, that kid Noah might not take part in this. Without further ado, Thor called Felix and updated him on their current plan. I am in. Felix agreed instantly, not caring that Noah would know about the presence of primogenitors and true secrets of his bloodlines. Felix stopped caring about hiding his secrets ever since the primogenitors and their champions knew about it. At the moment, the public was the only one who was still ignorant about his bloodline's origin. He preferred keeping it hidden to avoid unnecessary annoyances, but it didn't mean that he couldn't share his secrets with anyone. As for having Noah owning Fenrir's ultimate, he would love it if Fenrir decided to let him keep it. In fact, he would be more than glad if Olivia and the rest of his teammates owned ultimate abilities too. Felix wasn't a child who gets upset if he didn't hog all the toys. If things could be shared and benefit him and the people he cared about, he wouldn't hesitate to do it. I will set up a meeting with Noah now. Without an ounce of hesitation, Felix emailed Noah, informing him that he would like to have lunch with him today. In a few minutes, he got a reply. It was an email that had a thumb-up emoji. He will really hit it off with Fenrir. Thor's eyelids twitched after being reminded of his brother's muteness. Chapter 883 Convincing Noah. Some time later, Felix could be seen sitting in front of Noah within his UVR's room. He had to pause his journey to Aquarius Galaxy, so he could enter the UVR. Felix wasn't alone as he was accompanied by his masters and Asna, though, they didn't show themselves for now as they wanted to avoid crowding Noah. How is your progress going with integration? Felix asked while pouring Noah a soft drink. 34%. Noah replied while picking his drink. Not bad. Felix raised an eyebrow in surprise. He knew that Noah must be integrating with 2% each time and in short periods of time to reach such a percentage. After all, it wasn't long since had given them the primogenitors' bloodlines, others would definitely be still at 16% or even less. I know that you're busy, so I will make this short. Felix coughed and asked him with a serious tone, do you want to reach origin purity in your mythical bloodline? Noah's indifferent expression was broken apart at the sound of that. In his mind, he believed that he wouldn't be given the rest of his mythical bloodline until the day he earned the organization's trust. Olivia and the others thought the same too. He didn't expect that Felix would be offering it so soon. Noah nodded immediately in agreement. Before I can do so, you need to know the whole truth about mythical bloodlines. Felix took a deep breath and started confessing the truth about his organization and the bloodlines. He told him that the organization was just sham created by him to keep suspicious of him and that the bloodline's origins were from primordial beings called primogenitors. In addition, he told him about Fenrir and that his bloodline was his, and they intended to awaken him within his body after he reached 99% in his integration. Noah didn't interrupt him no matter how shocking and unimaginable the stuff he was being told. He merely kept listening with a dazed expression until Felix had updated him with the full picture. When Felix finished, he remained quiet for a few minutes, allowing Noah to digest everything. Still, he discerned that Noah was confused about some matters. I know that this is a lot to handle at once. Felix paused and asked, do you have any questions? Will I be safe if Fenrir was awakened within me? Noah asked with a serious expression. Noah refused to talk all right, but when it came to serious matters related to his life and death, he becomes as fluent as everyone else. Felix knew that Noah wasn't afraid of death itself but the thought of leaving his sister all alone behind him. Instead of answering him, Felix called out, Masters, I think it's best if you were the ones assuring him. Following his call, Lady Sphinx, Hormungandr, and Thor appeared akin to gods above them. Noah glanced above him and felt like his heart was about to get crushed when he came eye to eye with them. Immediately after, he lowered his head, not daring to glance above him again. When Felix saw this, his eyelids twitched, knowing that his masters must have increased their pressure a little to put him in his place. After all, talking about primogenitors was one thing but meeting with them for real was another. In the case of Noah, who never knew that such beings existed, their pressure would make him understand that he was dealing with the real deal. Child, your safety is guaranteed. Lady Sphinx assured calmly as she took a seat next to them. Noah nodded in understanding while sweating a little from his forehead. Although she didn't explain much, he could feel that her words were full of conviction, and it would be blasphemous to even question them. Luckily for him, Lady Sphinx wasn't a bully as she let him on their plan. If you agreed, the first thing you will do is pack up your stuff and travel towards the Witch Empire. I will be waiting for you there. Noah knitted his eyebrows the instant he heard that he was required to leave to another galaxy. When he left Earth for the training camp, he was always worried about his sister's well-being. That's while he was merely a few million kilometers away from her, don't even mention tens of light years away. You can take your sister with you, but I honestly prefer if you leave her behind. Felix assured with a firm tone, she is my cousin as well, and I will make sure that no harm befall her while you are away. Upon hearing so, Noah was somewhat relieved. He knew that if Felix decided to protect someone, there was simply no way for them to die. After all, he was the leader of the Federation and the Void Commander. No human was sane enough to f***ck with him or those close to him. Seeing that Noah had nodded his head in agreement, Lady Sphinx carried on, after you reach my castle, I will handle everything else. In other words, Lady Sphinx would help him with the rest of the bloodline and also deal with Fenrir when he awakens. Lady Sphinx had already figured out an alternative method of filtering the primogenitors' bloodlines from beasts just like Asna. As one of the smartest beings in the universe, it wasn't that hard for her. As for her method of dealing with Fenrir, she intended to put a wisp of her consciousness within Noah. This would ensure that Fenrir wouldn't act against Noah immediately after opening his eyes. By the way, my master will help you grow a bit stronger with a couple of unique potions if you desire. Felix tempted. Noah nodded with unsubtle eagerness in his face. Honestly, he was already planning to help out Felix even if he had nothing to gain from this. In Noah's mind, he owned Felix far too much, this without even mentioning being given a primogenitor's bloodline. Just the fact that he had established a safe environment for his sister to live her life without worrying about anything was already the best favor he could ever ask for. I guess this is all. Felix smiled as he said, "Tell me when you are ready to leave, and I will prepare the best spaceship and escort for you." Noah raised 3 fingers, implying that he need merely 3 days. "All right, greet your sister and the team for me," Felix requested. Noah gave a slight nod in acknowledgement, then he turned to the primogenitors. He bowed his head respectfully and excused himself from the meeting. Good kid, he might really get Brother Fenrir's approval. Thor praised. I wish that too. Felix hoped. Felix truly desired for Noah to get as strong as possible, that's because he had no idea how the F***ck he would be entering the origin realm when he had used primogenitor's bloodline as the last one. To enter the origin realm, one needed to use the strengtheneth 1% human bloodline and devour the 99% of the last used bloodline. In Noah's case, he would be trying to devour Fenrir's bloodline while he had been integrating with garbage bloodlines from beasts. Felix didn't even dare to imagine his fate if he went for it. Don't mope about it, he has chosen this path on his own. Asna yawned, you didn't force him to integrate with Fenrir bloodline and you definitely informed him about the disadvantages. I know. Felix shook his head and dropped those thoughts. In his eyes, all would be cleared out when the time comes, as for now? It was time to carry on his journey. Chapter 884 Reaching Lucarius Galaxy. 1 month and a half later. Sir Felix, we are about reach the wormhole connecting Icarius Galaxy and the Dwarven Galaxy. Mistress Candace announced as she traveled at unprecedented speed. Mistress Candace chose to travel through the Dwarven Galaxy since it was the closest to their position. All right, you can leave the Void Realm now. Felix informed, we need to pass the customs with our spaceship. Felix had a legitimate permanent visa that allowed him to enter and leave Icarius Galaxy. It would be foolish to not use it and sneak inside the wormhole without getting registered. That's because he would be easily found out when he tries to buy anything. Thankfully, there wasn't a long queue to enter and leave Icarius Galaxy. The moment Felix showed his visa, he was given access automatically by Queen AI and welcomed with open arms. Because the 4 main wormholes connecting with the outside of the galaxy were situated near the capital planet Zuham, Felix continued the rest of the journey in his spaceship. Let's check on Noah. Felix contacted Samir and asked him about their current whereabouts. We are 10 days away from the capital planet Femagrath. Samir reported. Good, inform me when you arrive. Felix said before hanging up. Felix wanted to be updated about Noah's situation always since his newest bloodline depended on him heavily. At the moment, he couldn't decide anything until he sees if Fenrir was willing to bestow his elemental manipulation to him or not. In his eyes, he honestly believed that it was far-fetched fantasy since Fenrir was still alive. Nevertheless, his masters had convinced him that they would try their best to make it happen. That's one big-ass planet. Asna commentated in intrigue as she eyed a massive green planet that was at least 100 times bigger than Earth. It had 3 sets of blue rings, which made the planet appear extra glamorous. It was truly worthy to be the capital planet for the dragon race, one of the biggest creatures in the universe. In a few hours, Felix reached one of the many space stations situated around the world. It was clearly built in mind for dragons instead of other smaller races as everything was enlarged in size, making it seem like Felix had drank a shrinking potion. There isn't that many dragons around. Felix thought as he rode on a hover taxi within the spaceship. As he mentioned, there were barely even 5 dragons in the surrounding area. Still, the space station wasn't running short of travelers at all. There were many humans, witches, vampires, orcs, goblins, centaurs, and other unique-looking races going back and forth in hover taxis. Felix knew that unlike him, the majority of them were either slaves or workers on a job visa that needed to keep updated every 3 months. If a worker got fired from his job, he would immediately get deported outside the galaxy if he didn't find another job before the duration of his visa ends. In Icarius Galaxy, it was extremely difficult to secure even a janitor job. That's because the metal race was providing them with their latest and best AI bots. Every time there was an opening for jobs, the applications for them could reach up to billions. Who could blame them? Even though the dragons were hard to deal with they were incredibly generous in their pay and benefits. All in all, working in Icarius Galaxy was a dream job that was highly contested. Everyone with a work visa take pride in it, and they get treated with respect from the outsiders. In a short while, Felix had arrived at the space elevator that was designed for smaller races. The dragons either enter their planet by simply piercing through the atmosphere or with their spaceships. Only the other races weren't allowed to enter with their spaceships unless they were high-valued guests. "Why are you taking the space elevator?" Asna asked lazily. "Isn't your title allows you to be treated exactly the same as dragons?" "Yes, but you need a place to park your spaceship first." Felix replied, "I don't even have a place to spend the night in yet, plus, I want to avoid beaming my spaceship as I will need all the space in my spatial cards." "Call that lass, I bet she prepared a warm bed for you." "You're right, I should inform her about my arrival." Felix acted on her teasing and called Selfie right away. Bastard! Just like Selfie was waiting for Felix's call, she immediately picked it up and greeted him with a delighted expression. Felix greeted back and checked on her well-being. It's been a while since he had spoken to her since he had no connection to the outside world after he entered the Void Realm. Honestly, after what Asna pulled off in their dinner date, he was a bit awkward to deal with her. "Are you in a space elevator? You already arrived at the capital or did you stop by in a different planet?" Selfie raised an eyebrow in surprise after seeing his background. "I just arrived at the capital." Felix confirmed. "So fast?" Selfie said in astonishment, "I guess you were somewhat nearby the 4 main portals." "Somewhat like that." Felix agreed, even though the truth was far from that. "Which space station did you enter?" Selfie asked. "The 44th. That's quite far from the White Dragon clan's territory." Selfie sighed, "I think you should travel through the Void Realm after you enter the planet. The journey will take a few days even with the fastest transportation method in the planet." The planet being 100 times bigger than Earth posed a great challenge in transportations. That's why there were many space stations spread out on it. So, the visitors would pick the nearest one to their destination. "I was planning to," Felix informed, "I decided to check on the city first before meeting up with you." Felix didn't pick this space station randomly, it was connected with one of the biggest hubs in the planet. Felix did his research before entering the galaxy, making him pinpoint the best hubs for selling natural treasures and other goodies. "I see." Selfie's expression turned a bit saddened. She clearly wanted to accompany him. "I will be just taking a look." Felix comforted her, "I won't be buying anything for now until I study the market first." "Good, don't buy anything until you meet my friend." Selfie bragged, "Anastasia is the heir of the royal family brain and intelligence, they handle everything related to the economy and business side of their empire." "I know." Felix nodded. Felix would be a fool if he didn't run a thorough background check on all 4 clans. After all, he couldn't interact with them if he had no idea about their strength, weaknesses, conflicts, enemies, allies, etc. Since his aim was the ancestral scales, he needed to make sure that he wouldn't make a wrong move due to his lack of intel. Still, with his current layer in the UVR, he didn't have a bigger access to important details about the 4 clans. Thud thud. Abruptly, the elevator shook a little. "We will be starting the descent soon, let's talk later." Felix waved his hand and hung up after she wished him a safe trip. Felix turned to the window and glanced outside the moment the space elevator pierced through the atmosphere. The sight truly dazzled him and made it hard for him to move his eyes from the window. Blue clear sky, white thin clouds, and greenery was everywhere. The trees came in all sorts of colors and unique shapes never seen before, their sizes would make the biggest tree in earth appear like a sapling. Felix knew that in this breathtaking forest, there were thousands of low-graded natural treasures spread out akin to wild plants. The galaxy wasn't known for being the richest in terms of natural treasures for no reason. In every planet, people could find natural treasures lying around them. Unfortunately, the dragons didn't bother too much about them and the other races had to be given a gathering license to pick them. Felix knew that receiving such a license was as hard as climbing a mountain of needles. When the elevator got closer and closer to the ground, Felix's eyes were switched to a magnificent iron city that was built within the forest. Although the trees reached 100 meters in average, the buildings still overshadowed them with their towering height. From a design standpoint, there wasn't much to speak about as they were looking as modern as other cities. That's because this hub was segregated from the dragons and was built on unclaimed territory. It belonged to everyone and no one at the same time. Sure, dragons could come here and pull their weight if they wanted, but none of them was that bored to waste their time on bullying weaker races. In other words, this city was free of dragons' presence. No wonder it's called Freedom City. Felix mewed as he zoomed on the streets and buildings, not spotting a single dragon flying by. Chapter 885 Misunderstanding. Some time later, Felix was spotted walking on the sidewalk with Nemo. Both of them were looking around them in intrigue, appearing like two countrymen visiting a city for the first time. Nemo was intrigued by, well, anything new. As for Felix, he was a bit astonished that workers from different races had come together and built an entire city just for themselves. Honestly, if it were any other race, this wouldn't have been acceptable at all. Thankfully, the dragons treated other races the same as pets, not giving a crap about what they do outside their presence. Naturally, as long as they didn't break any rules. Lord Shark's store should be here. After walking for a few minutes, Felix stood before the entrance of a thin skyscraper that was fully covered in tint glass, making it resemble a dark pencil. Felix walked inside after having his bracelet get scanned at the entrance. Then, he went to the receptionist and asked for the floor of Lord Shark's store. The store owns from the 20th floor to the 30th. The receptionist disclosed, to learn about their floors and the items they are selling, please climb to the 20th floor and ask their receptionist. Thank you. Felix nodded and scanned his bracelet on a device with her name on it, tipping her directly 10,000 coins. The receptionist bowed her head in his direction and returned to take the next person. However, when she took a glance at Felix's direction, she realized that he was heading towards the leftmost elevator. It was the only one empty and without a queue before it. He gave me a big tip, I can't let him embarrass himself like the others. The receptionist excused herself from her desk and walked with quickened steps towards Felix. After she caught up to him, she leaned next to his ears and whispered. When the people standing before the queues for the other elevators saw this, they chuckled to themselves. Another new idiot, who got too comfortable in the city. Sigh, he actually took the name Freedom City a bit too literally. Those people knew that even though the city was built for the workers and that dragons almost never bothered to step foot in it, the buildings were still designed for their sake. The leftmost elevator was exclusive only for dragons' use. In a sense, it was actually exclusive only for royal dragons since they were the only ones capable of taking a humanoid form. But in reality, royal dragons, or not, this elevator was almost never used ever since it was built. Although it was being wasted and that people were forced into longer queues because of it, no one dared to complain out loud. Why is he still going there? What's going on? The queued people's chuckles were cut short after noticing that the receptionist was sent back to her desk with a dazed expression while Felix continued on his merry way to the elevator. When he reached it, they were all prepared to laugh their asses off, knowing that he would be denied access by the Queen. Alas, the moment Felix ran his bracelet on the scanner, the elevator's screen turned green, and it started to open up slowly under the stunned eyes of the nosy spectators. Felix stepped inside and pressed on the floor he wanted. Then, he turned around and raised his eyebrows in surprise when he saw that everyone was looking at him with widened eyes. Thud. The elevator's door closed a second later and started its journey to the 20th floor. As for the people in the first floor, all of them felt their hearts skip a beat at the implication of that elevator getting used. A royal dragon, that's a royal dragon. A royal dragon really visited the city. Dear Lord, I was chuckling at him, I am really seeking death. Without exception, everyone believed that Felix was a royal dragon in a humanoid form. Who could blame them? Felix was wearing thick clothes and a hoodie that was hiding his face. In addition, he had sunglasses and a soft disguise that changed his face's features, making it hard to assume his identity. If Felix was removed from the equation, the only plausible guess was a royal dragon. I need to inform the floor's lords. The receptionist opened her contact list and sent a unified message to all the floor's owners in this building, warning them that a royal dragon was amidst them. If they weren't warned, they might end up offending him and get themselves killed on the spot. In the Icarius galaxy, neither the slaves nor the workers were protected by the SG Alliance against the dragons. In other words, if they pissed off any dragon, he had every right to turn them into ashes. Hell, they could even raise the entire Freedom City if they were extra pissed off. No one would make a squeak about it. In the 20th floor, an old wrinkled red goblin was walking around many shelves while using a crutch. The shelves looked proper and clean, making the items on them appear even more precious. Although there were merely a few customers in such a big floor, the old red goblin seemed happy with their presence. 200 customers in a half day, hee. Business looking terrific today. The red goblin grinned widely in happiness, exposing his non-existent teeth. This was Lord Sharks, one of the biggest shop owners in the entire city. As a red goblin, he was naturally known for his stinginess and skillful negotiation skills. Still, his shop was always populated since he was selling almost all known items in the universe. He had 10 floors in this building and each floor had a unique selling point. There was a floor for potions, a floor for artifacts, a floor for energy stones, and most importantly, even a floor for natural treasures. This was just the things on display. It was believed that his warehouses were flooded with all sorts of treasures. Ring ring. Abruptly, Lord Sharks's expression turned solemn after seeing that the receptionist at the first floor had rung the emergency alarm meant only for Dragon's presence. Lord Sharks swiftly opened his AP bracelet and saw the feedback of everything that went on the first floor. When he saw that the mysterious figure was coming to his store, he felt like soul was about to leave his body. Which god decided to pay attention to my little store? Lord Sharks gulped a mouthful in worry and sprinted as fast as he could towards the elevator. The crutch he was using was merely to make him appear weak and fragile, so he could draw sympathetic points from his customers. The moment he reached the personal elevator for the staff, his bracelet rung again. This time, the call was from his own receptionist in the 20th floor. Treat that customer with the hoodie like your lord and savior. I will be there to accompany him right now. Lord Sharks yelled out a message to his receptionist immediately. The receptionist was startled by her patron's message. Is this man a big shot? The receptionist thought as she eyed Felix, who was sitting in front of her with his head lowered. When Felix entered the 20th floor, he immediately asked her to take him toward her boss as he had serious matters to deal with. That's why she called her boss in the first place. A short while later, Lord Sharks emerged from the personal elevator with an agitated expression. When he saw Felix sitting calmly without a single drink in his hand, he felt like the world was collapsing on him. This F***ing idiot is gonna get us killed. Lord Sharks glared at his receptionist, making her title her head in confusion. Fortunately for her, Lord Sharks wasn't planning on leaving Felix wait for another second. Esteemed guest, would you like to join me in my private room? Lord Sharks wanted to kneel down as the true proper greeting before a royal dragon, but he would rather not do so in public. In his mind, the royal dragon was hiding his identity to avoid attracting attention, and he wanted to avoid being blamed if he exposed him. With pleasure. Felix replied politely. His accent is off. Lord Shark's wrinkles were stretched as he thought deeply. He even responded politely, besides the gentle white clan dragons, the others wouldn't even bother to give me a head nod. Lord Sharks had lived in Icarius Galaxy for more than half a millennial. He wouldn't claim himself as knowing everything about the dragons, but he was greatly knowledgeable about them nevertheless. Based on his hunch, he could feel that something was off about Felix. Still, he didn't dare to ask him out loud. He took him to the private room and closed the door behind him. The moment he did so, he fell on his knees and smashed his forehead on the ground, scaring the shit out of Felix. I greet the royal dragon. This loyal subject deserves capital punishment for the poor treatment His Highness has received. Lord Sharks shouted with a stern voice, leaving Felix utterly speechless. Chapter 886 LT's going to be a productive day. Royal Dragon. Did he mistake me for one? Felix mewed as he remembered that he wasn't really displaying his identity. I think you should keep the misunderstanding. Mistress Candace suggested, royal dragons are treated like gods in this galaxy. Even if you decided to rob the entire store clean out of treasures, no one will make a complaint against you. Indeed. Felix grinned widely. He understood that if he displayed his identity, he would never match the same treatment as real royal dragons since his title provided him with mere red dragon status. Red dragons didn't enjoy the same perks as the royal family. They could act as freely as they wanted, but if their actions crossed the line, they would have to answer to the Green Clan officials. The Green Clan dragons could be considered as the police in the galaxy that handled cases related to dragons. But, if you did so, won't you be in trouble too? Asna wondered. I doubt that causing trouble as a fake royal dragon won't go unnoticed. Since Felix enjoyed the perks of a mere red dragon and get treated the same, he would be subjected to the same punishment by the Green Clan if he was caught. How is it my problem that I am being mistaken for a royal dragon? Felix snickered. I just don't want to expose my identity. If there is someone to be punished, it won't be me. Plus, I am not planning on going too ham in my purchases. Felix said, I am not a devil to ruin someone's job for no reason. Based on your purchase list, I doubt he will be thankful after you leave. Asna giggled as she eyed Lord Sharks, who was shivering while still in a kowtow posture. He was getting more scared and nervous every second Felix remained quiet, making him feel like he would die at any given moment. *CK, if only I had a sponsor. Lord Sharks knew that as a free worker, he had no master to lean on in such dangerous moments. If he had a sponsor, he could have easily started the conversation by introducing his name. This would assure his safety since sponsored workers and slaves were considered as private property. If a royal dragon went and killed any other dragon's property without a plausible cause, he would have to answer to the Green Clan if the owner decided to file a suit. Since all dragons were prideful creatures, you bet your ass the owner wouldn't settle things quietly even if the culprit was a dragon clan head. In the same coin, being a sponsored worker meant that recruitment contract was as close as a slave contract. The hired workers would lose most of their freedom, making it hard for someone like Lord Sharks to even open a reputable store like this. Stand up and go bring me everything in this list. Felix ordered calmly as he forwarded a holographic list. Thank you, Your Highness, thank you. Feeling like he was given another lease of life, Lord Sharks stood up with a relieved expression. I assure you that not a single item will be miss. Lord Sharks's sentence was cut off short after his eyes finally aligned with the holographic list. He was absolutely mortified, feeling like he was seeing the world collapsing on him. This much. Who could blame him? The list included hundreds of high-rated materials, tens of thousands peak energy stones from countless elements, and lastly his entire stock of B and A graded natural treasures. The total price of the items listed should have crossed 2 trillion worth of coins. However, because Felix was considered as a dragon, Lord Sharks was obliged to sell him everything with the original pricing in Icarius Galaxy instead of the known market price in the UVR. In other words, the B and A graded natural treasures prices would go down as far as by 90%. Is there a problem? Felix frowned. No, not all. Lord Sharks immediately shook his head after hearing the displeased tone of Felix. Knowing that his innate stinginess would get him killed if he remained here any longer, Lord Sharks bowed at Felix and dashed outside the private room while assuring him that he would bring him everything. Although Felix knew that Lord Sharks would suffer from heavy losses in this transaction, he didn't care much. He understood that Lord Sharks was gaining shitloads of coins from ripping off other buyers by selling the same items at the price a little lower than the market. If he had his shop open anywhere else, this would have made him seem somewhat generous. But in Icarius Galaxy, where it was rich with natural treasures, energy mines, and a paradise of materials, he was still octupling his earnings at minimum with every item. This was the benefits of being a free worker with licenses to mine energy stones, gather natural treasures and materials in this galaxy. He merely needed to pay yearly taxes on his profits to the royal family, and they would never bother him or his business. After all, he was ripping off the other races, not dragons, and they were fine with anything as long as he stays above the line. This is really going to be his worst day ever. Mistress Candace chortled. He shouldn't feel too sad. Felix smiled faintly. He isn't my only stop. Felix wasn't planning on leaving the galaxy until he reaches 6th mark and also prepare enough natural treasures for at least 5 more marks. In other words, he would be the Grim Reaper for those free workers with stores. 15 minutes later, Lord Sharks could be seen handing Felix a spatial card with his hands spasming. Felix ignored the depressed look of Lord Sharks and picked up the spatial card. All here? Yes. How many natural treasures are in here? Felix asked. 50, 54. Lord Sharks bit his tongue as he answered with great difficulty, feeling like his soul was being cut apart with each coin lost in this transaction. He didn't dare to calculate his losses, knowing that he would absolutely go insane. Not bad. Felix smiled at his collection. 54 might seem little, but it was consisted of only B and A graded natural treasures. In addition, this amount came merely from a single store. Outside the galaxy, all of those natural treasures would have sold nowhere else but in private auctions. Queen, please calculate the total. Felix requested. Rounding up, 352 billion SC. Queen answered in a split second. He, Dragon Slayer title is really a cheat. Felix grinned inwardly while wiring the correct amount to Lord Sharks. Ti ring. Lord Sharks's shoulders tensed up the instant he heard the wiring notification noise. This noise was his highlight in the day, making him smile foolishly every time he heard it, knowing that his account balance was growing fatter and fatter. But now? He didn't dare to even glance at his bank account, knowing that he might unconsciously assault Felix if he saw the wired amount. Breathe in, breath out, what's done is done, now, I can only try to gain other benefits from this shitty transaction. Lord Sharks was a veteran goblin merchant, all right, as even a loss of trillions coins wasn't enough to completely cloud his judgment. Your Highness, I hope you are pleased. Lord Sharks smiled sincerely and suggested, this lowly goblin is short of high-graded natural treasures. Since my store is not mainly focusing on them, I can recommend you to a couple of stores that have at minimum hundreds in their warehouses. This cunning little bastard. Asna giggled, he is trying to bring down the other stores with him, so he will have an easier time recovering from this loss. That's normal. Felix wasn't really surprised as he had anticipated this much from a goblin. When it came to money, the goblins had absolutely no loyalty to their race, kin, or even family members. Wasn't poor Luby cheated on by his wife and brought to ruin simply because she sought another goblin that would offer her more benefits? Forward their names to me. Felix ordered while standing up. I will be visiting them in a while. Of course, of course. Enlivened and delighted, Lord Sharks swiftly gave him their names, throwing their asses under the bus with him. After Felix received the list, he checked it quickly. When he noticed that there were a couple of hidden black market stores, he couldn't help but smirk faintly. Today will be truly productive. 1x8. Chapter 887 A True Black Market. After he finished his business, Felix left the building and took a taxi towards the second biggest store in the Freedom City. Based on Lord Shark's intel, there were 2 public stores and 3 black market stores, which sell natural treasures. Naturally, Felix had been given the location of those hidden stores. He wasn't planning on leaving the city until he cleaned everything in it. Meanwhile, back in the 20th floor, Lord Sharks was sitting in the private room in front of multiple holographic screens. Each hologram was displaying a shadowy figure. Those were the owners of the other stores in the city. We have heard that a royal dragon has paid you a visit. Are you connected with him somehow? One of them asked. No. Lord Sharks replied, he came to buy some stuff and left after getting them. What did he buy and in what quantity? Not much, I think he was passing by and needed to snack on some natural treasures. Lord Sharks lied through his non-existent teeth. He wasn't a retard to confess that Felix had emptied his stock and he was gunning for theirs next. He understood that if even one of those shrewd businessmen realized that their stocks were in danger, they wouldn't hesitate to empty them in spatial carts and send them away. I see, his visit is really unexpected. One of them asked, did you figure out his identity or at least his clan? You think I am a fool to seek death like that? Lord Sharks sneered, I didn't spend even a second staring into his face. The others nodded their heads in understanding, knowing that they would have done the same if it were them. As free workers, they would do anything to avoid getting killed or deported from the galaxy. That's why even though Lord Sharks suffered immensely under Felix, he was still relieved that it ended with one transaction. Should we kill the news from traveling outside? Since the royal dragon is hiding his identity for some reason, I believe that's only proper. Lord Sharks gulped a mouthful. What if this was related to upcoming heir's ceremony and by blowing the royal dragon's identity we ruin his plans? All of them felt chills course on their spine at the sound of that. They knew that if the royal dragon believed that it was their fault, he wouldn't hesitate to raze the city to the ground. Without further ado, all of them contacted the other leaders of the Freedom City and made sure that they keep quiet about this. When it came to the survivability of the Freedom City, no one would hold back from doing the right thing. It might seem like they were overreacting, but they really weren't. There were a few cities like this one had been brought to ruins by the dragon's fury. It happened too many times for them not get the message. Oblivious to any of this, Felix kept organizing the materials into batches within the cab. You have 20 batches now. Asna wondered, are you certain this will work? It should. Felix replied, the tests in the UVR have been more than positive. Tisk, still giving me work. Asna clicked her tongue in annoyance. You have been lazing around far too long. Felix's eyelids twitched, it looks like you are getting used to it. Felix didn't buy those energy stones for no reason. He intended to use the batches of materials he bought to concoct multiple elemental potions. Since it was just a rank 3 potion, he was able to concoct them easily after some training in the UVR. Felix was planning on consuming them and unlocking tens of random affinities and then increasing their rating to 100%. By doing so, he would be able to consume natural treasures of those elements. In other words, he wouldn't be forced to target only natural treasures of 3 elements but from tens of elements, which would increase the quantity to an astonishing level. The only problem with this plan was the fact that the elements gotten would be random. This signified that he might unlock rare elements. Since natural treasures of such elements were either extinct or impossible to find, it would be the same as unlocking a useless element like his illusion dot. Thankfully, the materials in the Icarius galaxy were available and cheap, making it possible to keep unlocking elements continuously. 1 hour later, Felix could be seen walking in an empty alley while being guided by a blue arrow. He had already paid the second shop a visit and emptied his stock too from natural treasures and other goodies. Although the shop owner was just as mad as Lord Shark's, he also recommended Felix to the same stores, hoping that he would target them and leave him alone. Right now, Felix was attempting to pay a visit to the first store in his black market list. As expected, it wasn't easy to reach. He had been walking for over 10 minutes now through one of the most complex alleys he had even tread on. Should have asked for a map. Felix mewed in irritation as he kept following the arrow. Soon, he was forced to stop after seeing that the blue arrow was now pointing downward. Felix glanced below him and noticed a black drain cover. Felix picked the drain cover and looked within. The moment he was hit the terrible stench, he closed the cover immediately and pulled back a few meters. Jump in. Asna egged him playfully. F***ck that. Felix used his infrared vision on the ground and noticed countless humanoid red auras 300 meters below ground. Felix was surprised by this as he expected to find a single store like Luby's bloodline shop, not an entire market under the city. Let me help you, Sir Felix. Mistress Candace opened a void rift next to him and extended her beautiful hand. Thanks. Felix smiled as he took her hand. Mistress Candace transformed into small aircraft and took him to the location of those people. Good thing Felix had used Mistress Candace, as the gate to the black market was right next to the sewers. Mistress Candace ignored the guarded gate and entered the black market. She searched for hidden empty spot and dropped him. Felix nodded in appreciation at Mistress Candace and fixed his attire. As for Nimmo, he was left behind with Mistress Candace before entering Lord Shark's, knowing that he might misbehave while he was negotiating. Felix lowered his head under the hoodie and joined the crowd, heading towards one of the marked stores by Lord Shark's. It looks like when the Freedom City was built, the black market was the first thing that was taken into consideration. Felix thought inwardly as he eyed giant pillars spread throughout the entire black market. They were supporting the ceiling and allowing the workers to build up to 3-story buildings. It was truly a new world under the ground. Some time later, Felix reached his targeted store. It was a 3-story building with a sophisticated design to it. One glance at it and anyone would know that this store sold only for those with deep pockets. Welcome, sir. The moment Felix's foot stepped inside the first floor, a green lizardman in a formal suit welcomed him with his head bowed. Take me to Mr. Zajlatl. Felix requested while tipping him handsomely. Please wait in the lounge for a few minutes. I will be contacting Mr. Zajlatl for you. Felix went and sat in the empty lounge without causing trouble. He glanced around him and realized that he was the only one shopping here. Their prices must be insane. Felix thought inwardly. His given intel ended at the store location and the name of the owner. While he was sitting and checking the place, 2 lizardmen were watching him from a hidden security camera at the corner of the floor. One of them was the receptionist, who greeted Felix, and the other one was Mr. Zajlatl. F***ck, he really came here as well. Mr. Zajlatl cursed in his mind, not pleased whatsoever that Felix had targeted his store too. He predicted as much would happen when Felix attended the second store on the surface. How did he get inside without meeting the guards? Mr. Zajlatl knitted his eyebrows. I paid them to alert me if he came, F***ing useless dogs. Chapter 888 A True Black Market LL. Boss, should I kick him out or tell him that you are away? The receptionist wondered. Idiot! Are you trying to get us burnt to ashes? Mr. Zajlatl cursed while standing up, finally deciding to balls up and meet with Felix. Go withdraw the dragon scales and other parts from the shelves as fast as possible. Mr. Zajlatl said, I will buy you some time. Is he? Upon hearing so, the receptionist finally realized their guest's identity. Yes, F***ck off already. Without an ounce of hesitation, he dashed to the third floor and started to remove the mentioned items with a horrified look. He didn't dare to imagine his fate if a dragon saw that they were selling their race's body parts. Unbeknownst to them, Felix had been using his infrared vision ever since he entered the store, making him observe the receptionist sprinting from a shelf to another. Felix got curious and activated his X-ray vision too. The moment he spotted a couple of giant bones on display and that the receptionist was beaming them away, he immediately realized their origin. As expected of the black market, they are daring enough to sell even dragon remains. I doubt they will have any boundaries. Felix raised an eyebrow in surprise. For them to remove them, it looks like he has been tipped off about your fake identity too. Asna chuckled, you know what to do. Ha, I won't be called Felix if I don't rip them off clean. Felix grinned. Hello, kind sir, thank you for your patience. Mr. Zajlatl bowed with his hands held together respectfully after emerging from behind a door. Drop the pretense, you know me. Felix replied indifferently. Thud. Instantly, Mr. Zajlatl fell down on his knees and greeted with a devoted tone, this lowly subject is honored to be in the presence of a royal dragon. Felix made a noise of acknowledgement and forwarded a new list to him, get me everything on this list. Mr. Zajlatl took a deep breath and lifted his head. The moment his eyes came in contact with the list, he almost fainted on the spot. This. He was completely frozen in shock and horror. He wasn't even concerned about the fact that Felix was requesting his entire stock of natural treasures or materials. How could he when all dragons' body parts were written on the list too? There was the heart, the bones, the tendon, the gland, the liver, brain, and the list goes on and on. Royal Dragon, I don. The first sentence that comes out of your mouth better not be a lie. Felix interrupted with cold eyes. Mr. Zajlatl swallowed the rest of his sentence, feeling like he was truly seeking death attempting to lie before a royal dragon. Your order will be completed in 10 minutes. Mr. Zajlatl assured while standing up. Then, he turned around and went towards his receptionist, who was still getting rid of the dragon's body parts. Felix watched him slap his receptionist in the face over and over again before pointing his finger at the first floor. He is really venting his frustration on his worker. Asna said. Well, either that or he will have a complete breakdown. Felix snickered, dragons' body parts are extremely rare and useful, making them overpriced as hell. Now, he will be handing them over to me without a single coin charged. Although the price wasn't discussed, there was absolutely no way that Mr. Zajlatl was going to sell them to Felix. In his eyes, he should be relieved that he still had his head attached after being caught red-handed like this. That's because selling dragons' body parts was banned universal-wide. Queen was entitled to report anyone owning them to the proper authorities. Unfortunately, whenever there was shitload of money to gain, there would always be people finding loopholes to make it happen no matter how illegal and risky it was. For them to not get reported, they must have used a solution to disguise the dragon's body parts and fool their bracelet scanning system. Felix guessed inwardly. He wasn't certain if his guess was right, but he knew that many black market merchants use a special solution called the modifier for many banned items and treasures. In addition to a shitty first-generation AP bracelet that had the worst scanning system, the merchants were capable of beaming banned items into their AP bracelets. Since Queen AI was allowed to only report those with possession of the banned items, the merchants were safe even if they literally sold them while saying their names. Felix knew that the SG Alliance could easily reinforce the rules and make all their efforts go for naught, but just like slaves, the black market was too big to be given up on. After all, the race leaders and other authoritative figures were actually the ones taking the most advantage of the black market since the things they usually want were always banned. For example, tasting the meat of a dragon or other exotic creatures, banned potions that had absurd effects, slaves from protected strong races like high elves, etc. Hence, SG Alliance turn a blind eye on the method used by the merchants and keep the status quo as it was. Still, this didn't mean that if one got caught red-handed, he could walk away without suffering the consequences. Mr. Zajlatl was more than caught red-handed. 10 minutes later. Everything is here. Mr. Zajlat said as he handed Felix a spatial card with his heart beating rapidly in agitation. In his mind, he was still not completely out of the danger zone. Total. Please, consider it as a gift, you have already paid me with your honorable visit to my unworthy shop. Mr. Zajlat stressed. Do I look like a beggar? Felix frowned. No. No. No, I am sorry, I am so sorry. Mr. Zajlat stuttered with his head affixed on the ground, feeling his back turning damp from the cold sweat. Seeing that Mr. Zajlat wasn't having a good time, Felix decided to lay him off for now. He wired him the money for everything besides the dragon's parts. If it were up to him, he would have taken advantage of Mr. Zajlat and took everything for free. But he knew that would draw suspicion on him since it was a universal truth that dragons never receive gifts unless it came from others of equal status. Thus, to keep the ball rolling in his court, he had to keep acting as a true royal dragon. Felix exited the Mr. Zajlat's shop a few minutes later. The moment he was gone, Mr. Zajlat closed his shop, too stressed out and scared to dare sell anything for today. I bought so much, yet I paid even less than at Shaikh's store. Felix smiled, black markets are really the best. Naturally, the merchandise in the black market were not taxed, in other words, Queen Ai consider them without owners since no one paid taxes for them. If it was up to those sellers, they wouldn't blink an eyelid before paying the taxes. That's because having taxed products meant that Queen Ai was their insurance in case their products got stolen. The thief would get caught eventually and their products would be either returned or at least compensated. It was like paying for insurance as well as taxes. However, because the origin of those black market products wasn't really legal, taxing them meant that the first person to get F***ed by the system would be them. For example, the natural treasures and materials here were definitely harvested without a proper license like the one Lord Sharks owned. If the gatherer decided to legalize his harvest, he would be reported instantly by the queen. The softest punishment would be deportation from this paradise. Do you want me to steal some items for you, Sir Felix? Mistress Candace inquired causally. No need. Felix shook his head. Although he was more than able to take everything here without any of them making a complaint about it, Felix didn't feel like it. He knew that the sellers here had taken considerable risks to get their products and sell them here. He wasn't such a dickhead to rob them clean when they hadn't done anything wrong to him. 1 hour later, Felix could be seen sitting on a soft king-sized bedroom inside a breathtaking suite. He already raided the other 2 stores and also a few more unrelated to the items he sought. Unfortunately, the other 2 stores didn't have dragons' remains. Felix had made sure that they weren't lying to him by abusing his fake authority. Honestly, he wasn't that surprised about not finding any. The only method to find dragons' remains was true sheer luck. That's because when dragons die in fights against each other, the winner makes sure to completely erase the loser's remains to avoid ending up in the hands of the wrong people. Everyone knew that dragons' bodies were treasures on their own. No dragon would want to have his corpse getting devoured or used as material. This left the only proper method of finding their remains was by exploring deserted planets in the galaxy, and hoping to luck out on dragons' burials. Fortunately for the explorers, dragons' bodies were almost immune to decay and decomposition, making them strike rich every time they find a burial. I got half a heart, a quarter of a liver, a quarter of a spinal cord, a couple of teeth, the gland, and lastly, red reflective scales. Felix thought while eyeing the content of his spatial inventory. Chapter 889 The White Dragon Clan. Felix didn't know if Mr. Zajlat had already sold the rest before or this was the only parts he managed to secure. After all, he wasn't an explorer but a mere trader. Master, do you have any good recipes or better methods to use those parts? Felix inquired. He knew that the most common method of receiving benefits from the dragon's organs and flesh was by eating them. But, it was believed that method didn't really make the best use of them. The only recipes I own that involve dragon's parts are higher than rank 5. Lady Sphinx replied. I see. Felix smiled bitterly. Felix had a feeling that she would answer like this since he had never seen or heard about a potion that involved dragons. Not even a rank 5 one. He had read a crazy number of books about them. Well, it was to be expected, dragons were superior beings, and it was impossible to create a potion recipe when the materials were almost non-existent. Even the UVR would help just a little. So, there is no way for me to use them properly now before then. Felix really wished to concoct a potion with them as he knew that the minimum benefit obtained from eating the heart or other organ was a significant empowerment to one's physical strength. Based on the forum's posts, it was believed that the minimum increase was 5,000 BF. In other words, hitting half a devourer's mark with a single meal. If this was the minimum enhancement, Felix couldn't imagine how much strength he would obtain after using a proper recipe. You can forget about potions for now. Lady Sphinx suggested, it's much better for you to simply use a cooking recipe. A cooking recipe? Yes, I have many of them that can enhance the taste and most importantly, the benefits obtained. Lady Sphinx disclosed. Felix was a bit speechless as he had never expected that Lady Sphinx would be a master of cooking too. The horrible taste of the potions she made still haunt him to this day. Lady Sphinx ignored his skepticism and shared, I have 5 cooking recipes for the heart, 6 for the liver, and 20 for the meat. Choose wisely which one you will use since each recipe has a specific benefit. What do you mean? Eating green lavender dragon heart stew will help you increase your fire resistance significantly. Though, you will lose out a bit on the strength enhancement. I see. Felix nodded his head in understanding. He was still somewhat surprised as this was the first time he heard the cooking recipes could play a considerable role in the benefits obtained from the ingredients. It's all about the right ingredients and cooking sequence. Lady Sphinx clarified, if they don't match, you will actually make it worse than just eating the meat with a simple recipe. This is a whole new domain that is mostly explored by the primogenitors and other superior beings. Thor said. It made sense that not everyone was knowledgeable about those kinds of cooking recipes. After all, it wasn't a common experience to eat exotic ingredients that were even rarer to get than natural treasures. Without further ado, Lady Sphinx handed Felix all the recipes related to the ingredients in his possession. Felix read them carefully for the next minutes. When he was done, he couldn't help but marvel at ingredients involved and how meticulous the cooking steps needed to be. For example, the green lavender dragon heart stew needed 10 grade A natural treasures, each was playing an important role in the recipe, making it possible to bring out the most of the dragon's heart. I have ingredients for only 4 recipes. Felix smiled, still, I am quite satisfied with them. Although Felix had emptied the entire Freedom City of natural treasures, he was still missing significant ones for some recipes. VRRRR. Abruptly, Felix's AP bracelet started vibrating. He glanced at the screen and noticed that it was Selpha calling him. He picked up the call. I hope I am not bothering you. Selpha said, I just called to check on you and see if you need any assistance in the Freedom City. So thoughtful. Felix smiled in appreciation, thank you, but I have already finished with my business here. I will be arriving at the White Clan in the next hour. Good, safe journey. Selpha hung up with a clear excited expression. Look at her, getting all happy and chirpy on meeting you in the real world. Asna snorted in irritation. Felix acted deaf to Asna's spiteful comments and entered the UVR, hoping to spend the next hour honing his cooking skills. The recipes were too strict in their preparation and required immense control over the ingredients. If it was possible to practice the full recipe in the UVR, he wouldn't have been this worried. Unfortunately, the SG Alliance had banned cooking and eating any sort of meat related to intelligent life forms. The people were free to cook anything in the UVR and go absolutely insane in it, just not with intelligent life forms' body parts. Although it was just UVR and everything was virtual, the 10 rulers couldn't stomach the notion of having their race members being eaten by others in the UVR. If it wasn't banned, there would be no shortage of freaky bastards, who would eat humans' flesh, vampires, witches, sages, heavenly turtles, and mostly dragons. If the dragon's organs and meat weren't highly beneficial to his growth, Felix wouldn't even glance at it. All in all, Felix had to take on the recipe in the real world straight away. He wanted to avoid screwing up something since the ingredients were finite. If it wasn't for this sort of advanced cooking wouldn't be hogged only by primogenitors and other superior beings. 1 hour later, Felix finally embarked on the journey towards the White Clan's territory. Since Mistress Candace was taking him through the Void Realm, he reached it in less than 5 seconds. Instead of going straight towards Selpha's given location, Felix exited the Void Realm a few kilometers above the White Clan territory. A real dragon city. Felix couldn't help but stare at the city below him in admiration and fascination. It was built on a silver mountainous circular chain that was spread for hundreds of kilometers. The ends of the mountainous chain were connected with each other, making it resemble men's wedding ring. There were countless uniquely designed buildings on those mountains. Half of them were on the outside while the other half was carved inside the mountain, making it seem like the buildings were rock sculptures. All of them were painted milky white, creating a breathtaking contrast between the black color of the mountains and the buildings. As for their sizes, Felix knew that the buildings were merely the surface front as the real living place was inside the mountain. In other words, each mountain could be considered as a single house for a dragon. Yet, none of this was as overwhelming as the inner city within the Silver Ring. Everything was built in mind for dragons' presence, making each building to be 100 times bigger than normal. Since the dragons couldn't run efficiently without workers and slaves, there were many districts prepared just for them. At the very center of the city, a sole towering white mountain stood proudly. It was surrounded by hundreds of gigantic statues of dragons in varied positions. Unlike other mountains, there was no other construction on it besides 4 wide open caves that were carved to resemble gates. The White Clan Palace. Felix thought inwardly as he eyed the White Mountain. Felix knew that only the clan head, the elders, officials, and the heirs were allowed to enter and leave the White Clan Palace as they pleased. As for other white dragons, their living spaces were on the mountainous chain. Although every White Clan member was considered to have the royal bloodline, not all of them get treated in the same manner. It was the same as the cousins, aunts, uncles, and other family kin of a human royal family. Felix knew that there were some White Clan members that spend their entire lives without glancing even once within the clan's palace. You are probably the first human to be invited to a clan's palace. Asna chuckled. Not probably. Felix said with a certain tone, most definitely. Chapter 890 Prince Easy and Princess Anastasia. Felix knew that not even the Bardo Empire councilmen stepped foot inside the White Clan territory or any other major clan territory. The royal family only invited high-profiled people from the top 10-20 races during their gatherings and ceremonies. The rest? They could enter the capital planet but remain outside their territories. Such a high level of disrespect could only be achieved by the dragon royal family and stay unaffected by it. Let's go. Felix stopped sightseeing and blinked in front of Palace's gate. The moment he appeared, he attracted the attention of a sleeping white dragon, who was situated next to the gate. The white dragon opened his eyelids slowly, exposing gorgeous glowing pink eyes. He glanced at Felix with the corner of his eye and warned lazily, "Human, turn around and leave while I am still being nice." Instead of answering, Felix removed his hoodie, sunglasses, and lastly the thin mask that modified his features. You. The Dragon Slayer. The laziness of the white dragon was nowhere to be seen, as his eyes snapped wide open in shock after recognizing Felix's identity. In this galaxy, unless a dragon was in a slumber, all of them knew about Felix without exception. How could they not know the only player to slay not 1 but 4 red dragons? Holy sh**t. I am a big fan. The white dragon exclaimed in excitement while jumping in his place akin to a child being given candy. Felix was left at loose for words, not expecting such a reaction. Based on the size of his gem, he must be still a child in his early years. Mistress Candace shared while eyeing a small pink gem in the center of the white dragon's forehead. No wonder. It was hard to figure out a dragon's age based on their size and features. That's because not all dragons could grow to 50 meters or higher. Some of them, like Prince Domino, had hit their size growth limit at mere 20 meters or so. The white dragon before Felix was at least 30 meters in height, yet he was still displaying a pure childlike reaction. Felix didn't dare to imagine how much bigger he would become after he hit puberty. "Can you sign on my gem?" the young white dragon requested with a cheerful tone while leaning near Felix's face. "Is that proper?" Felix looked around him in worry, feeling like he would get assaulted by other clan members if he did so to one of their kin. This was truly a new experience for him. He believed that he had fans throughout the entire universe from almost all races, but he never thought for a second that a royal dragon was one of them. It was insane just thinking about it, since red dragons didn't even fan over each other, don't even mention other races. "Don't worry, everyone in my family knows that I worship you," the white dragon assured Felix with sparkles in his eyes. Knowing that he would be devastated if he rejected him, Felix shrugged his shoulders and decided to give him what he wanted. "Well, *ck it, I can't say no to a fan. What's your name?" "Easy." Felix pulled a pen and jumped on Easy's head. Then, he wrote a cheesy sentence dedicated to Easy and signed underneath it. All done. After Felix jumped down, Easy manifested a giant holographic mirror and looked at Felix's signature. "Whoa, so darn cool." Easy liked it a lot. Seeing that Easy was genuinely happy about his signature, Felix couldn't help but ask, "Why do you like me? Isn't there other strong royal dragons in the Empyrean rank to take as an idol? Isn't that obvious?" Easy scoffed, "Their battles are too boring. They either dominate the weaker races with their flame orbs or engage in barbaric battles against each other. On other hand, your battles are always unique and fun to watch." Easy grinned happily. "I can respect that." Felix nodded in satisfaction, quite pleased that he was being looked upon much higher than even Empyrean rankers. "I forgot to ask, why did you come here?" Easy titled his giant head in confusion, "Are you trying to enter the palace?" "Yes." The moment Felix confirmed it, Easy grew nervous as he kept shifting his eyes around. He leaned closer to Felix and whispered, "I can assist you sneak inside if you promise to stay hidden. No need to get yourself in trouble, I have a proper invitation from Princess Anastasia." Felix smiled while displaying a holographic written invitation. If even some white dragons couldn't enter the palace, there was no way Felix would be able to enter it without someone from the inside making it happen. "Sister Anna has invited you over." Easy's eyes widened in happiness. "Did she bring you over as a surprise for me?" "Hey!" Felix raised an eyebrow in surprise. "You are Princess Anastasia's little brother or a close cousin?" "She is my biological sister," Easy answered. "Doesn't that makes you the son of the current clan head?" Felix asked speechlessly, "Why are you guarding the gate?" "Guarding the gate?" Easy titled his head in confusion. "I wasn't guarding it, though. I just like to take a nap in the open." Felix had no comeback for his reasoning. "Jump on my back, I will fly you to my sis," Easy offered happily. Knowing that it would be futile to argue with him, Felix did as he was told. The moment he landed on his back, Felix sat in a mediation position while using his electromagnetism to affix his butt on the white scales. "Hee, that's ticklish." Easy giggled while spreading his massive crystal white wings. Compared to red wings, they appeared more refined, elegant, and less dreadful. Then, Easy flew rapidly within the gate. As he was flying, Felix kept roaming his eyes around in wonder. The inner side of the White Mountain was in complete contrast to the simplistic surface. The walls were curved beautifully with Dragon's own ancient language while many sculptures stood before them. This time, the sculpture displayed dragons in their normal form and also their humanoid forms. After the long corridor ended, Felix was met with a vast leveled hall that was connected with hundreds of rooms and stairs, leading both upward and downward. This time, the hall wasn't empty as a few white dragons were seen either climbing those stairs or flying through one of those entrances. My sister's room is near the summit. Isa shared while flying higher and higher through one of the stairs. I should probably notify Selfie. Seeing that he was getting closer to Selfie, Felix felt that it was only proper to update her about his arrival. Easy. However, just as he wanted to call her, Isa stopped abruptly in the middle of the staircase and shouted excitedly, "Big sis! What a coincidence, I was just bringing you your guest." When Felix heard so, he immediately lifted his head and was met with another white dragon flying towards them. With a single glance, Felix had no doubt that this was Princess Anastasia. She was way smaller compared her little brother or even Prince Domino, yet, the royal pressure she was naturally exuding would make anyone lower their heads in respect before her. The white dragons were already elegant and beautiful in their appearance compared to the other dragons, but Princess Anastasia still had a one over them. Princess Anastasia folded her wings gracefully and stood next Easy. Without further ado, Felix stood up and greeted with his head bowed a little in respect, "Felix Maxwell, greet the honorable princesses." "Likewise," Princess Anastasia said while eyeing Felix in intrigue. "Felix, you don't need to be formal in front of us." Selfie sulked, not liking being addressed formally by Felix. She was already struggling to get out of the friend zone, and now she was getting treated like an acquaintance. "I don't mind either." Anastasia smiled kindly, "A friend of my sister is a friend of mine. Thank you for your hospitality." Felix smiled back. Knowing that this wasn't the place for conversations, Anastasia led the way to her territory. After reaching it, Felix was surprised to see that she owned an entire floor just for herself. Instead of taking them to her main chamber, she guided them to her guest room that was built for accommodating other smaller races. The moment they arrived, Felix and Selfie were placed on the floor. Then, both Easy and Anastasia transformed into their dragonoid forms. Only now did Easy's finally physical form matched well with his mental maturity, as his height was reduced to merely 1.5 meters, making him resemble a human teenager. As for Anastasia, she became slightly taller than Felix. "Look how pretty she became." Asna snorted, "You must be happy to spend time with two beauties. No wonder you fell for me, looks like your sense of beauty is universal." Felix's eyelids twitched as he eyed Anastasia's dragonoid face, feeling absolutely no attraction to her whatsoever. It was called dragonoid form for a reason, even though the dragon obtained the shape of a human, everything else stayed the same. From their scaled skin, wings, tail, and sharp fangs. Sure, in the eyes of other dragons, Anastasia must be the prettiest dragon of them all, but just not for Felix. "Please, act like you're in your home," Anastasia said with a kind smile while extending her hand for Felix to enter her guest chamber. Chapter 891, The White Clan Courtroom. Felix nodded in appreciation and stepped inside. Although Anastasia called it a chamber, it was more like a mansion with countless bedrooms, 2 kitchens, 2 living rooms, and at least 8 bathrooms. "You can pick any room you wanted besides room number 1 and 2. Anastasia said. When Selfie heard so, she eyed Felix with a look filled with expectation, making his lips twitch a little. He knew that she wanted him to pick the 3rd room, so he could be next to her. Alas, Felix wasn't known for seeking death. "I will go for the furthest one," Felix clarified. "I intend to set up a concoction lab and I don't want to annoy you with the noise or the smell." Selfie's shoulders slumped a little in disappointment, but she said nothing to convince him to change his mind. This girl has really fallen too deep. Anastasia smiled wryly. "I don't know what she sees in him, but might as well be a good sister and help her a little." "That's thoughtful of you," Anastasia smiled as she suggested, "but, if you want to concoct potions, you can head to the lab. I have one set up for the sages that pay me a visit once in a while." Selfi's disappointed expression was revitalized at the sound of that. I will make sure to use it. Felix accepted, knowing that he couldn't reject using a professional lab. He had many potions to concoct, and he wanted to minimize his failures as much as possible. Should I make the maid prepare the third room for you then? Anastasia said. Oh, no, I am still taking the furthest room. Felix sighed bitterly, I will be integrating with a new bloodline later on. All I can tell you is that I get pretty noisy during the process. Seeing that Felix was adamant in choosing the furthest room, Anastasia could only drop trying to change his mind for the sake of her friend. Felix was still her guest first and foremost. She didn't want to make him feel pressured or unwelcomed, especially when her little brother literally worshipped him and spoke about him every single day. In a few minutes, Felix had settled just fine in his room. It was big, clean, elegantly designed, and had everything that he hoped for. As for the girls and Easy, they left him the moment he was dropped at his room, believing that he was tired from his long journey. Felix took advantage of their absence and continued his cooking practice for now. In the main bedroom, Anastasia, Selfie, and Isa could be seen hanging out together. Isa was sitting in front of a mirror, taking selfies with Felix's signature while the girls were sitting on the bed. I truly have no idea what do you see in him. Anastasia shook her head in disapproval. I know he is capable, but there are plenty of other capable suitors. In Anastasia's eyes, Felix was good but not great. The fact that he slayed 4 red dragons might be good enough to make a fan out of her little brother, but she knew that against real royal dragons, he would be embarrassed. She wasn't thinking so out of spite, it was simply a fact. I told you many times that you won't understand where I am coming from. Selfie chuckled, your marriage culture depends heavily on pure strength and authority, unless a dragon possessed them both, you wouldn't feel an ounce of attraction to him. In other words, no matter how much she tried, she would always see Felix as unworthy of Selfie, since she kept casting her own way of seeing love in their relationship. I know, but all I am saying is that you need to be careful. Anastasia sighed, you have shown me his girlfriend, and I am certain that even the royal princes will be attracted to her. I find it hard for him to give up on her and choose you. In my opinion, it's much better to just cut off your feelings right now and wait for another worthy ma. Enough. Selfie hardened her expression for the first time. She knew that Anastasia meant well with her advices, but she couldn't listen to her anymore, especially when she knew that it was simply impossible to give up on Felix. Elf's obsession wasn't to be underestimated. I am sorry for lashing out. Selfie quickly apologized. No, it's my fault. Anastasia smiled kindly, as you said, I am uneducated in your marriage culture and keep butting in needlessly. Don't worry, I won't be bothering with this anymore and will make sure to support you all the way in your mating quest. Stoop, I told you many times don't call it that. Selfie's cheeks reddened in embarrassment. How can you steal him if you get shy with just a term? Anastasia chuckled, you need to be bold and assertive. Easy for you to say. Selfie pouted. Anyhow, I will be going to inform my father about his arrival, wanna tag along? Anastasia asked. No, your father gives me the creeps. Selfie shivered a little after the image of the clan head surfaced in her mind. He will be really upset if he heard you say that about him. He treats you just like his daughter. Anastasia laughed. I don't care, I am not meeting him. As you wish, let's go easy. Anastasia and Isa walked out of the guest section and transformed back into dragons. Then, they flew towards a staircase that was leading to the mountain's summit. Aren't you afraid of being scolded by father for letting the Dragon Slayer sign your gem? Anastasia asked. It's worth getting scolded for. Isa said with a determined voice. You are truly hopeless. Anastasia smiled wryly and stopped mentioning this matter. In a short while, they arrived at the door leading to the courtroom, where the clan head and officials gathered to discuss important matters related to their clan and the galaxy as a whole. My apologizes, Princess, the courtroom is in session, and I was told to not allow Iza's entry. Unfortunately, Iza was denied access by another white dragon sitting before the closed-shut door. You're in luck. Go back to my residence and play with self. Before she could even finish her sentence, Iza already took off rapidly towards the stairs in excitement. He was clearly relieved that he wouldn't need to meet his father and hear his scolding over the signature. This brat! Anastasia chuckled while turning around. The moment she faced the door, the white dragon was already opening it slowly by pushing it with his scaled graceful white tail. Caw thud. After it was opened, Anastasia was met with a pressuring sight that would make anyone piss in fright. 20 humongous white dragons were sitting in a round table carved from the mountain's body. When the door was opened, all of them went quiet and turned around to face Anastasia. I am glad you joined us, little Anna. Take your seat, our current discussion is related to you. An old white dragon with visible wrinkles all over his face smiled kindly at Anastasia. Compared to the rest of the surrounding dragons, he was clearly the oldest and most respected. That's to be expected as he was the current White clan head and also the 9th-ranked strongest being in the alliance, Kirsoon White. Is it about the heir's ceremony? Anastasia wondered while sitting in an empty seat next to her father, marking her current position in the clan. Although she gave off a kind and simple vibe, she was actually one of the smartest royal dragons in the galaxy, making her assist the clan tremendously in the management. Indeed. Clan head Kirsoon nodded. We were just deciding on your team. As the captain, it's best if you give us your input. One of the officials disclosed while displaying tens of holographic pictures of dragons. The list included white, red, and even green dragons. The ceremony is still 4 years away. Anastasia was a bit startled. Aren't you elders a bit too hasty? If we don't prepare early, we will get swept away just like in the previous ceremonies. Clan head sighed. Upon hearing his reasoning, Anastasia knew that her father and the elders finally had enough of their losing stream in the ceremonies. But she understood that even if they prepared 10 years earlier, it wouldn't change the fact that the black and green clans were going to wipe the floor clean with them. After all, how could they deal with the black dragon's corrosion flames and the green dragon's soul-burning flames with their healing sacred flames? For the past millennials, all the teams led by the white dragon clan were defeated. To make matters worse, even the red clan's teams had performed better than them. If we continue this losing streak, it won't be long before everyone starts to consider us as the weakest dragon clan in the empire. We are already giving a weak impression to others by handling the business side of the empire. Chapter 892 Coming a Long Way. The Green Dragon clan was considered as the police of the empire while the Red clan represented the red dragons throughout the universe and gave them a voice against the other 3 royal clans. As for the Black clan, they were responsible for approving any of the decisions taken by other 3 clans that could affect the empire as a whole. In other sense, they were the head of the snake since the current elder dragon was from their clan. The White clan's responsibilities were truly unworthy of the tyranny and authoritative that dragons should own. Dragons were born to rule, dominate, eat, *ck, and sleep, just like kings, not manage the economy and businesses. Well, all I can promise is that I will do my best as the captain. Anastasia smiled wryly, but, don't put your hopes too much. I am not confident in being able to take down Prince Domino and Prince Arantis. Those little monsters have truly developed quite well over the years. Clan head Kirsoon expressed, that's why the other 4 teammates need to be adequate to take them down. Since Anastasia's sacred flames were oriented towards healing instead of causing damage, this meant that she would be considered as the support of the team. In other words, her teammates truly had to be the best of the best to handle the other 3 heirs. I will leave choosing my teammates to you, elders. Anastasia informed, if I don't like anyone you picked, I will tell you about it. That's fine by us. Oh, I almost forgot, the Dragon Slayer has arrived, and he is currently staying with me and Selfie. Anastasia shared casually. The Dragon Slayer? That human child? Clan head Kirsoon raised an eyebrow in surprise. Why did he come? Why is he your guest? It is unclear to me why he visited our galaxy, but he is a close friend with Selphie, and she asked me if he could stay with her. Anastasia answered. He most likely came to buy natural treasures cheaply. One of the officials guessed, as a human with a title that enabled him to receive the same treatment as dragons, he will most definitely take advantage of it. Well, he can buy all he wants, it's not like he can smuggle them outside without paying the customs. Another official shrugged his shoulders carelessly. Although Felix was receiving the same treatment as dragons, he would still be required to pay a sizable number of coins for each natural treasure he decided to take with him. That's because even the red dragons were under this rule. He will buy what he needs to use and leave it at that. All of them nodded in agreement. They knew that humans couldn't eat every single natural treasure in sight as their bodies were incompatible with many of them. In their eyes, the quantity of Felix's purchases would never hurt their market even if he went ham. If he decided to empty the market and resell them, he would need to pay the taxes just like the rest of the vendors. If only they knew that Felix possessed the Devourer's heart and was planning to unlock tens of affinities, they would most definitely find a reason and kick him out of the galaxy. Treat him well, he is the first player to challenge red dragons and slay them. Clan head Kirsoon said with asserted tone, he has earned our respect. Agreed, the news will go public soon, and we don't want the other clans to speak ill of us if we mistreated him. How about we set party to welcome him? One of the officials proposed, we held one for the elves' ambassador, and it won't look good on us if he didn't do the same for him too. Agreed. That's only proper. I think we should make it public and set it in 7 days to give time for the other clans to participate. Clan head Kirsoon smiled, if we are doing so, we might as well go all out since this is the first time we are having an actual Dragon Slayer amidst us. Everyone else supported his suggestions, believing that it was the right thing to do. I just wanted to keep them updated. Seeing that her father and the officials had already decided to make it happen, Anastasia could only hope that Felix wouldn't get bothered by it. After all, she didn't know whether he wanted to keep his whereabouts hidden or not. A few hours later, Felix could be seen standing before 2 long tables that were packed with many batches of materials and glassware equipment. 2 silver cauldrons were situated in the middle of them. Sister Anastasia really didn't lie, this is 10 times better lab than the one I own. Felix nodded in satisfaction as he looked at the cauldrons and the equipment before him. He knew that only sages would be able to get their hands on such high-quality equipment since they were crafted personally by dwarven forge masters. Honestly, if Felix requested, he would be given even better lab by Lady Sphinx, but he never felt the need for an upgrade since the potions he was crafting were still below rank 5. When it comes to resources and money, the White Clan is one of the richest backgrounds in the universe. Selphie approved while sitting next to Anastasia. Both of them decided to watch him concoct potions live after they spotted him heading towards the lab. Felix didn't have an issue with them watching as long as they didn't ruin his focus during his concoction. As for finding out that he was concocting tens of elemental potions, Felix had already told him that he decided to unlock most of his elements to assist him in picking the next bloodline. They didn't find it too weird since they knew about Felix's primogenitor's bloodline path. I will be starting now, ladies. Felix requested politely, I hope you sit a bit further and refrain from talking loudly. Both of them nodded in understanding and went to sit near the wall, putting a considerable distance from him. Then, Felix beamed a material that was capable of turning into a bubble and seal him with the lab inside. It was also able to purify the air to avoid any complications from arising. Without further ado, Felix started preparing the materials exactly as the recipe required from him. This wasn't the first time concocting the elemental potion as he practiced it numerous times during his climb to the Grandmaster rank. The materials for the elemental potion were the same ones that he spent so much effort in gathering the first time. It was quite surreal for Felix to see himself preparing those materials. He still recalled when he commissioned Witch Hala to make the elemental potion for him. She had 50% success rate, one of the highest of any Master Podi-1er. Yet, Felix was still nervous as hell of her failing since his future was on the line. Yet look at him now, he had tens of batches, making him unbothered even if he failed once or twice. That's if he even failed, as his success rate for rank 3 potions had already surpassed 70%. When he finally started the concoction process, he left Selfie and Anastasia gazing at him in awe and amazement. He is so fast and precise. Selfie commentated with her eyes brightened up. Easy there, you are about to salivate. Anastasia's eyelids twitched after seeing her sister's disgraceful reaction. Still, I have to admit that he is indeed much better than even Grandmasters. Anastasia nodded in admiration. He has already reached such a level in a mere few years, as expected of Lady Sphinx's student. If he kept at this pace, I believe it won't be long before he even surpasses Queen Allura. Selfie tightened her hands in excitement. As much as I hate to admit it, humans truly have the potential to excel at everything if given the proper tools. Anastasia nodded, supporting Selfie's claim. Meanwhile, Felix paid no attention to how he was being perceived, as his entire focus was put on dealing with the dark reaction. Because his mental capacity and control had blown up significantly due to the fairy's blessings, he had a much easier time saving an insanely large portion of the potion. After he finished this step, he picked up the saved portion and placed it within a second cauldron that was already filled with the supplement materials. Felix increased the heat next and closed the lid on the cauldron. Now, he could only wait and hope that luck wouldn't screw him over and fail the concoction even when he had saved more than 70% of the mixture. Fortunately, nothing too crazy happened, as the cauldron stopped moving at once and emitted a fragment smell throughout the bubble. The girls weren't able to smell it due to the bubble, but seeing Felix's wide smile, they knew that he had succeeded. 1 down, 30 more to go. Chapter 893 Anastasia's Treasury. 6 hours later. Felix could be seen wiping a sweat drop from his temple with a big relieved smile while sitting in front of a table. His eyes were affixed on the 28 elemental potions placed neatly on the table. This was his final result from more than 31 attempts. He was beyond satisfied with his success rate. You will put master-ranked witches out of business if you ever bothered to join the market. Selfie joked as she approached him with Anastasia. I am not too interested in that. Felix smiled faintly and beamed the bottles in his spatial card, leaving only 2 potions. They were the only ones different from the elemental potion. Felix picked them both and handed them to the girls. This is for you. Selfie and Anastasia were surprised by his gift, as they didn't expect that he had concocted a potion even for them. I couldn't. Selfie shook her hands with a faint blush, feeling too embarrassed to accept it. You have to accept it. Felix smiled. This potion can be used only by high elves. Oh ho? Is this a new recipe or something? Anastasia got curious. Indeed, it's called Runic Potion, and it is a 4-star difficulty rank 4 potion. It enables the user to see the runes much clearer, which will assist him to understand their complexities faster. Felix explained while showing them the beautiful bluish content within the vessel. There is such a potion. Both Selfie and Anastasia were left in disbelief, as they had never heard about a potion related to the runes. It's a new recipe created by my master. Felix cleared their doubts. Selfie raised her head and came in contact with Felix's sincere eyes, not knowing how to feel about this. She knew that Felix must have worked really hard to practice this potion, since it was a rank 4 new potion. Don't look at me like that. Felix shook his head. You have been helping for a while now without asking for anything. I really dislike being indebted to anyone, especially my friends. The moment Selfie helped him in the individual game of the event, he knew that he had to pay her somehow, or at least give her a small gift to repay her good intentions. Since Selfie was the daughter of an actual primogenitor and a heir of one of the strongest races in the universe, he knew that there weren't many things outside her reach. So, he requested a recipe from Lady Sphinx related to the runes, knowing that even Lady Yggdrasil wouldn't have such potions. After getting it, he worked in his spare time to practice it until he was adequate in its concoction process. Please take it, and if you really consider me as close person to you, never hesitate to ask me for more. Felix said while placing the potion on Selphie's stiffened hands. Thank you, I will cherish it. Selphie said while hugging the potion like she was holding the most precious thing in her life. Felix's eyelids twitched, having a bad feeling that Selphie wouldn't want to waste the potion since it was a gift from him. So troublesome, I should probably make a few more for her just in case. Good, 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 keep spoiling her while leaving your girlfriend to hang out with those old fogies. Asna mewed with a jealous tone. Why are we being cursed too? Thor showed a wronged expression while eyeing Hormungandr. Just ignore it, she is like a loose cannon when it comes to girls around Felix. Hormungandr sighed while picking a card from Asna's hand. Felix did exactly so. What about me? Anastasia asked while eyeing her potion in intrigue. At the start, she wasn't really interested in Felix's gifts, planning to accept it as a good gesture and keep it somewhere. But now? She was quite eager to see what he concocted for her. This is Sunbright Potion, it's a rank 4 potion that will make your scales shimmer brighter under the sunlight for the next 10 years. Felix said. Oh ho? I have never heard of such effect. Anastasia got a bit excited at the thought of her scales always illuminating. As female dragon, her scales maintenance and care was equivalent to makeup for other females. Just like most girls, she was easy to please with a product capable of enhancing her beauty, especially if the product was used only by her. I love it. Anastasia took the potion without hesitation and beamed it in her spatial card, planning on using it later. I'm glad you liked it. Felix smiled. You know us dragons, we don't accept gifts freely. Anastasia informed, follow me to my treasury, you can pick anything you liked in it. No need to repay me. Felix shook his head, you're already doing too much by welcoming in your home and providing me with this lab. I don't want to hear it. Anastasia locked her hand around his arm and dragged him along towards her treasury. Sigh, all right. Knowing that it would be rude to reject her goodwill again, Felix could only tag along unwillingly. In a brief moment, they reached her treasury. As expected of dragons, they really love to sleep near their treasures and precious items. The gate to the treasury was literally connected with a gigantic nest made out of the smoothest white feathers. Anastasia dropped Felix and Selphie on her nest. Then, she opened the gate by having her AP bracelet scanned. Dear Lord! The moment Felix's eyes aligned with the treasury interior, he couldn't help but gasp audibly in shock. Who could blame him? The treasury was just as vast space with a few dozens of pillars holding the ceiling. From the door to the edges, not even an inch of the ground was visible. Everything was covered in gold pieces, diamond, precious gems, real artifacts, natural treasures sealed in containers, ancient items, accessories, and the list goes on and on. Sorry about the mess. Anastasia sighed, I have received many gifts and treasures throughout the years from other clans, ambassadors, and guests. Since I can't reject them, I just threw them here. Over the years, they piled up like this. If it's this mess, I doubt anyone would feel bad about having it. Felix's eyelids twitched as he eyed the thrown out hundreds of natural treasures in solid containers. He knew that there must be at least hundreds more buried under the pile of precious metals. Are you interested in natural treasures? Anastasia smiled after seeing that he kept glancing at them. Indeed. Felix nodded truthfully, I need a large sum of them. Then, go ahead and pick anything you fancy. Anastasia giggled, you will be doing me a favor by cleaning a bit of my treasury. Don't mind if I do. Felix grinned widely, knowing that she said so to make him feel more comfortable taking as much as he wanted. It was good effort from her, but she didn't know Felix well enough yet. When it came to gaining strength, Felix's shame gets thrown out of the window. Without an ounce of hesitation, Felix rolled his sleeves and jumped into the pile of treasures. Then, he activated his supersonic mode and started sprinting all over the place while making sure to pick only natural treasures. The girls could only stare at his electrical shadowy figure with speechless looks, not knowing how to react. Humans are really hard to understand. Anastasia covered her face with a hopeless expression, not planning on trying to figure out Felix anymore. Tell me about it. Selfa couldn't help but agree with her. This was the first time she sees Felix's shameless side. If it were her, even if Anastasia offered to pick anything she liked, she would still be moderate. But Felix? He was already close to clean all the natural treasures on the surface of the treasury. He, if I picked up everything, I will have enough to reach even mark 14 or 15. Felix's grin grew wider and wider as he kept beaming the natural treasures containers without even checking on their names. He knew that it would be shameful to gift below grade B natural treasures to the White Clan heir. In less than 2 minutes, Felix had emptied the entire surface of the treasury, collecting up to 200 B and A graded natural treasures. To gather this much, it must have taken Anastasia hundreds of years of receiving gifts at minimum. He only spent 2 minutes to reclaim them, yet, he wasn't done. Not caring about his face, Felix used his bracelet's scanner on the entire treasury, making the queen lock only on containers-shaped objects. He knew that it would be impossible to scan for the natural treasures since they were buried deeply under piles of solid items. However, separating shapes was much easier. Why does he even need this much? I don't know, but I don't think he is going to sell them. Selfie assured, knowing that Felix was too rich to bother with such a hassle. He must be needing them for something. Anastasia's eyelids twitched. I doubt that he just wants to clean out my treasury. Maybe he will use them in concoction. Selfie guessed. Probably, but it's best if we asked him. When he is done. Chapter 894 The Hexagon Crystal Gem. Felix didn't bother even glancing in their direction as he kept digging all over the place, securing one container after the other. Half an hour later, Felix was seen digging through a giant mountain of gold, trying to pull out a scanned-out hexagon-shaped object. Since the natural treasures were gifts, they were naturally placed in unique-shaped containers. When he reached it, Felix extended his arm inside and caught it with his fingers. However, the feedback on his fingers wasn't that of a container. It was cold, smooth, and hard as stone. Curious, Felix decided to pull out. What is this? Felix thought in wonder as he eyed a smooth white crystal hexagon-shaped object. Based on its heavy weight and appearance, Felix guessed that it was a unique diamond refined as a hexagonal prism. They are really gifting her all kind of weird thin. Just as Felix intended to retune the crystal hexagonal prism back to its place, Lady Sphinx exclaimed in utter disbelief, "It can't be. What is it?" When everyone saw Lady Sphinx's reaction, they knew that it was something serious. In this universe, there weren't many things that could surprise one of the most knowledgeable beings in the universe. Remember when I showed you a hexagon-shaped egg and told you that this is related the gem primogenitor? Lady Sphinx disclosed slowly with a stern expression, "This is it." You being serious? Felix was so shocked by her revelation, he dropped the hexagon-shaped gem on the pile. The tenants in his mind were just as stunned as him except for Mistress Candace, who kept looking left and right in confusion. She wasn't there when Lady Sphinx proposed the egg theory. She believed that the universe had given birth to many eggs like Nemo. Eggs targeting the elements without a primogenitor or other beings who overstepped their boundaries and had to be replaced. The gem primogenitor was the first one to off himself due to depression in the primogenitor era. Instead of doing just that, he bestowed his perfect gem manipulation to his descendant. The light primogenitor and the others decided to test out if it was possible for a single individual to hold into two perfect manipulations. So, the light primogenitor had agreed to partake in this experiment since he intended to off himself too. Unfortunately, their experiment ended up in failure and the descendant died, which resulted in the loss of 2 perfect manipulations forever. That's until the existence of Nemo showed up. How certain are you? Hormungandr asked with a serious tone. 40%. Lady Sphinx replied with a frown, the exterior is exactly the same, but I am not feeling any type of aura from it like with Nemo's case. That's why I am asking. Hormungandr confirmed, it feels dead just like a normal gem. Asna and Thor nodded in support. When Felix first approached Nemo in the ruins exploration, his evil aura was so thick, he was scared shitless about touching it. When he finally grabbed hold of it, Nemo's consciousness had invaded his mind. But in this case? Nothing unique about the hexagon gem besides its extraordinary weight. If it wasn't for Lady Sphinx, he wouldn't have bet a second glance at it. Felix, take it with you for now. Lady Sphinx said, I will study it later and check whether I am right or not. All right. Felix was still not convinced that this was the gem primogenitor's egg. He didn't believe in fate or such, and he most definitely knew that his luck wasn't so great to find 2 eggs of peak beings. Is there a problem? Anastasia asked from afar after seeing that Felix hadn't moved for a while now. No, I was admiring this stone. Felix smiled while showing her the hexagon gem. Oh, if you fancy it, you can take it. Anastasia offered causally. Thank you. Felix nodded in appreciation and beamed it in his spatial card. He expected that it would be this easy since Anastasia had an ocean of precious metals in her treasury. If she rejected him, it would be the same as a billionaire refusing to hand out $1 to his friend. Not to draw suspicion about the hexagon gem, Felix continued digging for the rest of the natural treasures like nothing happened. In a short while, he stopped on his own after realizing that the rest of the natural treasures were dug deeply under the piles, and it would take him immense effort to get them out. Although he was shameless, his face wasn't thick enough to go that far. I can't express how grateful I am at the moment. Felix bowed his head in appreciation after standing before Anastasia. It's no biggie. Anastasia waved her hand in a carefree manner and asked with a curious expression, though, I do wonder why you need this much. Is it for potion making? Selphie wondered. Yes, I will be pushing soon to the sage rank and I will need insane amount of natural treasures to start working out on my master's recipes. Felix lied through his teeth without a change of expression. As expected. You have already reached such height, amazing. Selphie's eyes were filled with stars as she stared at Felix like he was her idol. Both of them believed in his bullshit since it was known knowledge that rank 5 potions require natural treasures to concoct. That's why they were 10 times harder than even the most difficult rank 4 potion. If it wasn't for this insane difficulty, there wouldn't be less than 20 sages witches in the universe. Ladies, I will be returning to my room to rest for a bit. Felix disclosed. All right, we won't bother you anymore. Anastasia smiled. I will call you in the evening if you are interested in grabbing dinner with us. It will be my pleasure. Although Selphie wanted to hang a bit more with Felix, she could see that he was asking to not be disturbed in a polite manner. So, Felix returned to his room alone while the girls went back to their room. As for Easy, he was most likely napping outside the mountain's gate again. The moment Felix returned to his room, he closed the door behind him and beamed the hexagon-shaped gem. So, how are you going to study it, Master? It will take a while for one of your personal delivery worms to come get it. Felix inquired while checking the gem from all corners, not feeling an ounce of energy. I believe Lord Cow's subordinate must be on the way as we speak to deliver your new void suit. Lady Sphinx said, I will ask for his services when he arrives. Lord Cow's had promised Felix that he would make him a suit immune to void in a mere few days after Felix requested it. Knowing that Lord Cow's wouldn't break his words, the suit must have already been created and delivered towards Felix. However, because Lord Cow's was living at the edges of the universe, it would take a while for his subordinate to arrive even by traveling through the void realm. I am still failing to understand why doesn't the gem have an aura, energy, or anything that can separate it from an inanimate object? Asna said. Likewise. Felix nodded. Felix wasn't even curious about how it landed in Anastasia's treasury. He knew that dragons were known for their like of precious materials, making them the biggest hoarders in the universe. Since Anastasia was a female dragon and also an heir to a royal family, it was to be expected that an unfathomable number of gems would come in her direction. It wasn't too far-fetched for this gem to end up its journey in Anastasia's hands. Honestly, he would have been more surprised if he found out in a ditch or something. Chapter 895 Disappointing Results. If this gem is an actual egg as I hope, then I believe that its situation is even worse than Nemo's case. Lady Sphinx clarified, when we found Nemo, he has already developed a consciousness, an aura, and even a bit of control over his egg, making it shape-shift as he pleased. He must have definitely absorbed plenty of void energy for it to happen. Then, he was caught off and landed in the hands of my worshipper somehow. What you are saying is that this egg wasn't as lucky. Thor said, it didn't absorb much of any elemental gem energy, making it unable to unlock even its consciousness. Precisely. When Felix and the others thought about it closely, they felt that it was the most likely scenario that occurred for the egg. Well, instead of contemplating about it, we can test it right now. Felix said while beaming 2 boxes filled with peak-grade gem elemental energy. They were part of the purchases spree in the Freedom City. He picked 2 energy stones that resembled sapphires greatly and placed them next to the hexagon gem. Felix pushed the stones until they were connected with the hexagon gem. Yet still, nothing much happened. Come on, do something. Felix said as he kept poking it with his finger. Alas. I guess we need to test out with purified gem energy. Thor suggested. Let's hope that I unlock the gem element then. Felix exhaled while beaming the elemental potions. Without unlocking gem element first, it would be impossible for Asna to absorb the energy and purify it. Felix drank the first elemental potion. Just like always, the process was fast and pleasing. When it ended, Felix requested from the Queen to scan him again and show him his unlocked elements. / Poison Element, 100% Affinity Rating. Illusion Element, 100% Affinity Rating. Sand Element, 100% Affinity Rating. Lightning Element, 100% Affinity Rating. Void Element, 100% Affinity Rating. Wind Element, 1% Affinity Rating / Good start. Felix smiled in approval, favoring wind element since there were many natural treasures related to it. Though the only downside of using elemental potions was having to start from 1% affinity rating. When he was taking Lady Sphinx's specified potions, he was unlocking at least 30% from the get-go. Again. Felix picked another potion and gulped it in one go. This time he unlocked plant element. Felix threw the empty bottle and carried on the marathon, knowing that his body could handle unlocking elements consecutively. In 20 minutes, Felix had drunk 15 potions and unlocked elements ranging from common, uncommon, to rare. Fire, water, charm, ice, death, destruction, space, magma, silk, blood, fog, darkness, light, creation, metal, gems, and the list goes on and on. He was pleased with some elements like ice since he would be needing it soon, and at the same time annoyed by elements like death, life, and creation. He knew that those 3 elements could be considered as never unlocked since the natural treasures related to them were never seen before. At least I unlocked the gem element. Felix sighed in relief. Instead of continuing drinking the potions, Felix emptied the peak energy stones for the gem element on his bed. Then, he placed his palm on them and Asna took it from there. In a few seconds, Asna finished the purification and informed, "You can start now." Felix and his tenants took a deep breath in anticipation as they stared at his palm approaching the hexagon-shaped gem. The instant Felix's finger made contact with it, Asna released the purified gem energy into it. "You gotta be kidding me. A split second later, Felix's eyes almost popped off their sockets at the sight of the hexagon gem shining brighter and brighter akin to a diamond under the sunlight. He didn't need to hear it from Lady Sphinx or Asna. He could feel on his own that his new purified gem energy was being devoured like a hungry toddler being breastfed for the first time. Well, it's official. Thor chuckled, Felix, you are most definitely going to experience an apocalyptic-level disaster in the upcoming years to balance your godly luck. Felix felt chills course on his spine at the sound of that. He knew that Thor was messing with him, but he truly felt like something horrible was going to occur. This sudden burst of luck was too good to be true. You guys love celebrating early. Lady Sphinx was the only one with a stoic expression even though her guess had been proven right. Is there a problem? Hormungandr asked. A big one. Lady Sphinx clarified, now that we have confirmed that this an egg, the best course of action is to hatch it just like we did with Nemo. Everyone nodded in agreement. In their eyes, the new gem primogenitor emerging from the egg would definitely be an ally to them and offer great assistance to Felix's journey. Unfortunately, Lady Sphinx thought otherwise. I believe that hatching this egg will take a very, very long time even if we fed it purified energy on daily basis. Lady Sphinx sighed. Felix and the others didn't like the sound of that. How did you deduct so? Thor wondered. The speed of the egg's absorption. Lady Sphinx shook her head, it might look fast, but in my eyes, it resembled a child trying to drink by himself for the first time. In other words, this egg was literally still in its first days of formation. Lady Sphinx assured them with a firm tone. It can't be. Felix's expression turned sour immediately. Felix understood that Lady Sphinx implied that the egg must have never tasted an ounce of elemental energy ever since it was created. How exactly did that happen and why did the universe even bother to create it if the result would be like this? He had no answer to those questions. All he knew at the moment was that the egg would most likely take eons of constant feeding before finally hatching. Unlike Nemo's case, who was already past 90% of growth and needed only that last push, Felix would be forced to start from the scratch with it. Felix had no time to babysit the egg every day by feeding it purified energy. He could invest a decade or so, but not an entire lifetime just for the sake of bringing a new gem primogenitor to the real world. By the time you hatch it, you will be either dead or already part of the primogenitor's circle. Thor sighed in disappointment. I knew that it was too good to be true. Felix smiled wryly while eyeing the illuminating gem that was still absorbing energy from him. If it were Nemo, he would have sapped him clean in less than 5 seconds. So, what are we going to do? Asna inquired. I think the best option at the moment is to place the egg within a rich environment filled with gem elemental energy and leave it there. Hormungandr suggested. I concur. Thor nodded, you will free it from your hands and can continue your life as normal. From a decade to another, you can check on it. This might not be the best solution, but it was much better than keeping the egg with Felix and forcing him to be a feeding machine for eons. He would always need to buy gem elemental stones and force Asna to keep purifying them every single day. Since the egg was a bottomless pit, he would never be given a break. On the other hand, placing it in such rich environment would keep it fed for 24/7. Before doing so, I still need to get it. Lady Sphinx disclosed, I couldn't research Nemo since he was stuck with you, but I can do it with this egg. I have no issue with that. Felix shrugged his shoulders while beaming the egg back, maybe, you will extract something useful out of it. The moment Felix realized that the egg would take unfathomable level of effort, he removed it entirely from his mind. He had no issues even if Lady Sphinx took it out of his hands and gave him something else more practical. After ending up with such disappointing results, Felix carried on with drinking the rest of the elemental potions. When he finished them, he created a long list of all unlocked elements and another one with the natural treasures in his inventory. Then, he requested Queen AI to arrange the natural treasures with their correspondent element. Fire, wind, ice, metal, and plant topped the charts. Felix murmured while eyeing the list. He made this list to let him decide which elements he would prioritize, increasing their affinity rating. After all, he needed 100% affinity rating to assist his devourer's heart a little in absorbing the natural treasures. Since he had more than 30 unlocked elements, it was truly going to be a pain in the ass for Asna. Fortunately, with his current body limitations, Felix was able to absorb much more purified energy, making it possible to reach 100% affinity rating in a mere few days. If it wasn't for so, Asna would have thrown a much bigger fit. Chapter 896 Prince Domino's Arrival. Back in Furlund Realm, inside the Queen's throne chamber. Ma'am, we have a report to make. Speak. Queen Alfreda nodded at a holographic screen showing a green-skinned elf with a stoic expression. This was one of the 3 guardians sent to keep an eye on Selphie in secret. The White Clan has just announced holding a party for the sake of the Dragon Slayer's arrival. The guardian informed. Queen Alfreda went quiet for a few seconds before asking calmly, "Is he staying in the White Palace at the moment?" "Based on our intel, it's believed that he is staying with the 2 princesses." "Sigh, my intuition was right after all." Alfreda smiled bitterly. "Should we bring back the princess?" the guardian inquired. At the moment Alfreda wanted nothing more than to break Felix's limbs and scold Selphie until her ears start spewing smoke. She absolutely abhorred the thought of her little sister being in such a close approximate to a human when she was clearly interested in him. Alas, she knew that it was already too late to pull her away. It will be too rude to make her return before she finished her official duties. Alfreda rejected while massaging her temples. Selphie had been sent as the ambassador for their realm, and she shouldn't be returned until the ceremony ends. In other words, she was going to be spending 4 years nearby Felix. Just the thought alone made Alfreda grit her teeth in anger. Relax, Selphie might be naive, but she isn't stupid to let herself get taken advantage of by that barbaric bastard. Alfreda took a deep breath to regain her composure. "I will call the clan head personally and tell him to allow you free entry to the White Palace." Queen Alfreda ordered with a cold tone, "So, make sure that scoundrel won't lay a single finger on Selphie." "Understood." "Yes ma'am. Yes ma'am. Yes ma'am." The 3 guardians assured with stern voices before getting hung up on by the queen. After they left, Queen Alfreda called the clan head Kirsoon immediately. If it was possible, she would have simply called to request that Felix get thrown out of the White Palace. Unfortunately, Felix was clearly a special guest to the White Clan too. If it wasn't for so, they wouldn't hold a welcoming party for him. "Vile humans, scum of the universe, I will be a fool to let my own sister go through the same trauma as I." Queen Alfreda's eyes oozed with bone-chilling hatred as she eyed Felix's holographic face. On the other side of the capital Zuham, Prince Domino could be seen standing in his dragonoid form at the peak of a pencil-thin dark tower. The dark tower was long enough, it had penetrated the clouds and was about to cross the troposphere, making him able to see the planet's curve. It was truly a magnificent view, but Prince Domino wasn't paying it any attention. Why did he come here? Prince Domino frowned as he eyed a holographic invitation to a party held for Felix's sake in 7 days. Is he here to increase his strength with our resources? Prince Domino wondered while recalling his last meeting with Felix in the event. When he teleported outside, he believed that it would be a long while before he hears about Felix or meet him again. After all, he had retired from the platform for now, and he couldn't participate in another event for the next decade just like Felix. "Good thing you came. I have been feeling like shit ever since our confrontation was ruined." Although Manananggal had been punished exactly as he wanted, he still felt pissed off for months over the notion of having 3 days of his life wasted on nothing. Time to settle things once and for all. Prince Domino narrowed his eyes coldly at the picture of Felix and jumped down. He merely kept nosediving without extending his wings to lift him up. The moment he penetrated the clouds, he disappeared for a few seconds. Whoosh! When he emerged again, he was in his black dragon form. His destination wasn't the ground but the White Clan territory. He didn't take permission from his clan or bothered to even inform them, he simply acted on a whim. 3 days later, Prince Domino's arrival at the White Clan had been announced thunderously the moment he stepped inside the White Palace. It came as a surprise to everyone since no one expected a heir to make an appearance in a simple party like this, don't even mention being the first to arrive. Soon, everyone's doubts were cleared as Prince Domino ignored everyone else and went straight to Anastasia's floor, knowing that Felix was staying with her. "Felix, Prince Domino came here for you," Selfie informed Felix with a nervous tone. "Did he now?" Felix reacted indifferently. He expected as much the moment he was told that the party was going to involve the other 3 clans. He knew that Prince Domino wouldn't miss this opportunity to have a rematch, so he could completely get him out of his mind. Even though he was knowledgeable about this, Felix still gave the White Clan his blessing to expose his whereabouts. Everything for the sake of his true goal in this galaxy. "Dragon Slayer, I have come to talk." As quick as lightning, Prince Domino had already arrived before Felix's room while being accompanied by Selfie, Anastasia, Easy, and some officials. He was the son of the Elder Dragon, the ruler of the dragons, and the strongest being in the alliance. No one would dare to block his path. "Come in, just you," Felix permitted calmly. Prince Domino pushed the door open and slipped inside before closing it shut in everyone's faces disrespectfully. "He is still as impudent as ever." One of the officials scoffed in irritation before leaving the area, not planning on waiting like some sort of guard. The other officials followed him too. "Let's head out," Anastasia said while pulling her brother and Selfie away. "But, he might be in danger," Selfie said with a worried tone. Although she knew that Prince Domino wasn't foolish to make a move on Felix within the White Clan's territory, she was still uneasy about his sudden visit. Based on her calculation, she realized that Prince Domino must have spent 3 days and 3 nights straight flying towards the White Clan ever since he received the news. For him to be this eager was truly worrying. Meanwhile, inside the room, Prince Domino and Felix were sitting on a table with 2 cups of tea before of them. They had yet to say a single word as they kept merely sizing each other while sipping tea once in a while. "I want a rematch," Prince Domino stated abruptly. "I don't," Felix replied bluntly. "Why, you scared?" Prince Domino frowned. "We will have it in the UVR without the death penalty. Furthermore, I will limit my strength to be as equal as possible to you." Prince Domino might be too arrogant and proud, but he wasn't a bully. If he was going to defeat Felix, it would be on equal grounds to leave absolutely no excuses. "I'm not you," Felix said. "I don't fight unless there is something in it for me." "A bet?" "Yes." "What do you seek?" Prince Domino's eyelids twitched, not planning on arguing with Felix. "What I want is something you can't afford to give." "Are you trying to provoke me?" Prince Domino's expression turned frigid. "In this galaxy, there is nothing I can't get my Han. Ancestral dragon scales." Prince Domino's sentence was cut off abruptly by Felix. "You are kidding, right?" Prince Domino felt like Felix was merely giving an absurd reward, knowing full well that he couldn't deliver it, so he could avoid fighting him. "I wish." Felix smiled wryly. Chapter 897 Calling out his bullsh***. He isn't lying. Why does he need the ancestral dragon scales? Prince Domino got curious about Felix's purpose of the scales. How could he not? The ancestral dragon scales were pretty much useless without their historical value to their race. The only practical use for them was as a shield. As for being forged, it was already attempted by the greatest forger in the Dwarven Empire, and he failed miserably to make an artifact out of them. In layman words, the materials level was simply too high for his expertise. Still, this didn't mean that Prince Domino could visit his clan's treasury and pick up a couple of scales for Felix. Useless or not, Every single inch of the ancestral dragon was well kept and protected by all 4 clans. It was the responsibility of every clan to keep their portion of the ancestral dragon corpse intact and well maintained. May I ask why you need them? Prince Domino asked in a straightforward manner. No need for you to know. Fairs. Prince Domino wasn't fazed by his rejection, he added, as much as I hate to admit it, you are right. It's impossible for me to get those scales without the approval of the clan head and the officials in my family. Not even a single scale. No. Prince Domino shook his head. I don't care much for them. If it were up to me, I would have given the ancestral dragon a proper burial with his treasures instead of cutting his corpse into 4 portions and splitting it between the 4 royal clans. It does feel a bit blasphemous. Felix knitted his eyebrows in dislike. He had no idea that the ancestral dragon was handled like this. Outside the dragons and a few authoritative individuals, neither did the rest knew about it. In the dragon's culture, a magnificent burial must be built for the dead dragon based on his contribution, authority, and strength. Naturally, he would be buried with his hoarded treasures to accompany him in the afterlife. The explorers weren't risking their lives seeking those burial grounds for just the corpse only, but also because they knew that every burial ground housed many precious treasures. I wonder what happened for you guys to go this far? Felix asked bluntly too. Wanna know? Yes. Fight me. Not happening. Tisk. Prince Domino clicked his tongue in annoyance and stood up. You're leaving already? Felix smiled, not staying for the party? You came this far after all. I will celebrate your title when you defeat me. Prince Domino sneered. As long as you haven't won against a royal dragon, your title means little to me. In a sense, Prince Domino must be pissed that Felix was being called the Dragon Slayer for simply killing red dragons. Sure, it was a truly extraordinary achievement that had never been done before, and most dragons felt that Felix deserved their respect. However, Prince Domino didn't think the same. In his eyes, the title should be called the Red Dragon Slayer instead of pulling even the royal dragons into the mix. If it wasn't for his pride being pricked every time he heard Felix's title, he wouldn't have bothered to participate in the event or come down here to challenge him. Too bad, Felix wasn't planning on letting him go too soon. His scheme to obtain the ancestral scales depended on him heavily. How about we help each other out? You want to fight me and I want the ancestral scales. Felix smiled. I have a way for both of us to get what we wanted. I am listening. Prince Domino's ears perked up in intrigue. I need you to increase my value before the other 3 clans. Felix smirked faintly. I will take it from there. Increasing your value. Prince Domino frowned. How do I increase something that doesn't exist? Stop being a dick about it and hear me out. Felix ignored his insult and leaned closer. Then, he shared his plan with him in great detail. After a few minutes, Prince Domino started giving Felix a piteous look like he was staring at a delusional idiot. I don't care how you think about my plan. Felix's eyelids twitched and asked, just tell me whether you are in or not. It will be shameful for me, but it's a small price to pay to restore the royal dragon's pride. Prince Domino spoke with a determined tone. Felix could only stare at him speechlessly. If anyone heard him, they might think I made him get naked in public or something. Felix's lips twitched. Whatever, as long as he is on board. See you at the party. Remember, you promised to fight whether your plan worked or not. Prince Domino warned, if you won't keep your words, you will stop seeing the polite side of me. Polite side my ass. Felix shooed him away. Just leave already, I have work to do. 4 days later. At the great spacious hall of the White Palace, many white, green, red, and black dragons could be seen socializing in their dragonoid forms. This implied that no one here wasn't considered as a royal dragon. Even the red royal dragons were capable of turning into their dragonoid forms since their bloodline was much purer than the others spread out in the universe. That's why, their true color was actually crimson, setting them apart from the rest. though, their bloodline purity was still not high enough to let them have an attributed sacred flame like the other 3 clans. In other words, they were still considered as inferior to them. The numbers of the attendants from each clan backed it up, as the Red clan had the largest numbers of attendants after the White clan. In comparison, the Black clan merely sent 2 dragons to be polite. In truth, if they had known that Prince Domino was planning on attending the party, they wouldn't have bothered to send anyone. Soon, an official white dragon took flight in the air and cleared out his throat to attract everyone's attention. "Welcome everyone to our humble celebration. I know that the journey must have been a pain in the ass for some of you, and we greatly appreciate your attendance." The official spoke fluently with a voice that echoed thunderously throughout the entire hall, making it hard for anyone to ignore him. "We are here to do nothing than celebrate the rise of a challenge, a hero, and bright future. When he first slayed the first red dragon Exodial, he was immortalized with the greatest title that could be given by our race. Now that he has 4 red dragons under his belt, he made it impossible for us not to respect his strength." The official extended his hand behind him and announced as loud as he could, "Please, give your loudest round of applause to the one and only, the Dragon Slayer Felix Maxwell." Clap clap clap. The instant Felix emerged from the staircase in a formal tuxedo suit while being accompanied by Selfie, Anastasia, and Easy, the dragons in the hall started clapping until the air started to twist and turn around. This level of respect wasn't directed only to Felix, but also Anastasia. In fact, more than 70% of male dragons here had come specifically for Anastasia, hoping to create a sparkle with her. In the dragon's circle, her attraction was no joke, as she had everything a dragon desired in his mate. After the introduction was over, Felix went on his own to mix with the guests, knowing that staying in the royal dragon's favor would always be beneficial. The empire might rule over the dragons but not in their territories. In other words, if Felix ever needed something from a royal dragon's territory, he needed to have permission of the owner first. Even if he had the backing of the White clan, if that dragon refused to give him entry, Felix could only stay outside obediently. As for the girls and Easy, the moment Felix left on their own, they got surrounded by tens of suitors for Anastasia. Easy didn't like it and went to the open buffet to fill his stomach. "We heard that Prince Domino has paid you a visit. I am curious about his purpose." A pistachio green-scaled dragon with a long face and a grey gem embedded on his forehead asked Felix causally. "No wonder many green dragons have decided to participate," Felix thought as he looked at the group of dragons around him. Most of them were from the Green clan, staring at him with their ears perked up in anticipation. He knew that black and green dragons had the greatest rivalry in the royal family, and they constantly try to defeat each other in almost anything. Since the Black clan heir had bothered to come all the way here, they believed that it must be something important. "Well, they just made my life much easier. It was nothing." Felix lied with a sincere smile. He wanted to invite me to join his team. "Bullshit." With an instantaneous unified response, everyone around called him out on his lie. "I guess you are nothing but a bragger after all. If you want to avoid telling us the truth, just say so." Heir ceremony? Even though you obtained a dragon status with your title, it didn't mean that you can consider yourself as a true dragon. Tens of royal dragons are close to the Empyrean rank, and they have never been invited to the ceremony. How dare you consider yourself as an option? Chapter 898, Creating an Opportunity Through a Facade. Not even the green dragons entertained the thought that he was telling the truth. They knew Prince Domino's personality fairly well, making them certain that he would have actually come all the way here to put Felix in his place than do such a crazy thing. Another issue they found about his story was his strength. Sure, he was strong enough to slay red dragons, but they knew that it would be impossible to repeat the same feat against royal dragons. Don't even mention the elite royal dragons participating in the ceremony. Their foundational strength was simply a chasm that couldn't be crossed by Felix anytime soon. As for his void domain and other killer moves, They knew that all of his strategies were now in the open and had been studied by everyone interested in creating defensive measures or counterattacks against them. Hell, they doubted if he could even slay royal dragons at the Radiant rank with the same abilities and strategies. I understand your reasons for doubting me. But, I am really telling the truth. Felix still maintained the same sincere smile even though he was under their barrage of doubts. Unfortunately, everyone's expression turned cold the more Felix stood for his story. This time, none of them bothered to even spare him a couple of curses as they all dissipate away from him. Seeing that Felix was left all alone in such a disrespectful manner, naturally attracted the other guests' attention and made them wonder about the reason. The spread-out dragons from Felix's group felt no obligation to cover for his lies as they exposed him to anyone who asked them. One by one, the news carried on traveling from a group to another until the entire hall knew about Felix's proclamation that he was invited to join the ceremony by Prince Domino. I don't get it, why did he lie? Does he have anything to gain from it? Anastasia frowned as she asked Selpha telepathically. As one of the White Clan heirs closest in age to Prince Domino, she knew him even better than some of his clan members. There was no doubt in her mind that Prince Domino absolutely didn't invite Felix to his team. First, he was too proud to do it on his own. Second, for such a decision to include a human in an all-dragons ceremony, he needed an approval from his clan head. There was no way the head clan would allow Felix join his clan's team when he had many other black dragons as candidates. I don't think he lied, Felix doesn't need to make such a lie to look cool before others. Selpha defended Felix with a worried expression, not liking the sight of him being shunned in his own party. Just as Anastasia wanted to explain her reasoning to Selpha, her eyes landed on Prince Domino stepping into the Great Hall from the corridor in his dragonoid form. He looked as cold and easy to piss off as always. His arrival in the party had shocked the guests since they knew that he had left the White Clan city after his meeting with Felix. They all thought that he had returned to his clan. Without an ounce of hesitation, Prince Domino ignored everyone and went straight for Felix. The moment he stood before him, he asked casually, "Why aren't you mixing with the others?" "Well, no one wants to have me around after I told them about your invitation." Felix sighed, "Even though I rejected it, it looks like trouble still follows along. This prick is seeking death. He actually brought it on his own, crazy. The hell, don't tell me he was telling the truth." The dragon's ears were pretty sensitive to noise and speech, making them able to pick up what Felix said, even the ones at the furthest side of the hall. The fact that everyone stopped their conversations simultaneously to listen to them made it much easier. When Prince Domino saw everyone's startled expressions and focused eyes on them, he wanted nothing more but to bust Felix's mouth apart to stop all this crap he kept spewing. Hold it in, hold it in. Alas, he could only keep his emotions in check, knowing that their deal would crumble if didn't act his part. "You still won't reconsider my invitation?" Prince Domino asked coldly. "I am willing to pay you immensely for your assistance." Everyone went as quiet as mice after hearing Prince Domino's direct confirmation. They all doubted their ears, making them look around him with stunned expressions, wanting to see if they were the only ones tripping over here. Alas! No one matter how they tried to deny it, the truth before them stood as tall as a mountain. How can this be? Anastasia and the White Clan officials were even more shocked than the rest. Anastasia simply felt that Prince Domino would never do such a thing, while the officials were shocked for a different matter entirely. Prince Domino came all the way to invite him to his team. Does he know something we don't? Maybe, he has increased his strength significantly in the past months after the event. This must be taken to the head clan as fast as possible. The officials conversed with each other with agitated looks. In their eyes, they would be considered as the greatest fools if Felix had gotten recruited into the Black Clan's team when he was being their guest for an entire week. They never bothered to consider Felix as a potential candidate since they had judged him as weak asset after they watched his latest games. With everything he showed and displayed, they still believed that he wouldn't push their team forward and help Anastasia in topping the ceremony. That's why no one mentioned the ceremony in his presence for the past week. Even Anastasia felt that he wasn't strong enough to be part of her team. But now? Everything had changed. One of the officials swiftly went to inform the clan head, who wasn't attending the party. This was more than enough to show Felix's position in the White Clan's heart. He was a guest but not an important one for even the clan head to greet him personally. Tisk, it's your loss then. Prince Domino turned around and left the party after seeing that Felix had gotten the reaction he desired. Thanks a lot for the help. Just fight me after this, or I swear I will torch you during your sleep. Don't be so feisty. Felix chuckled in his mind as he watched Prince Domino disappear through the corridor. Now, let's get out of here before the questions start raining on me. Felix eyed everyone and acted like he was aggrieved. Then, he swiftly exited the hall, returning to his room from the same staircase. Felix. Seeing Felix's disgruntlement made Selphie's heart ache for him, not realizing that he was faking the whole thing. I am going with him. Selphie informed Anastasia before chasing after Felix. Selphie, wait. Anastasia knew that Selphie was upset with her and everyone's terrible treatment in his own party. Being shunned like this even though he was telling the truth made her feel guilty as well. If only she realized that Felix orchestrated the entire scene to push his value significantly before the three clans. The Black Clan almost never bothered to invite someone to join their team, it was always the other way around. When they do invite another dragon, there was simply no other option but to accept it, the benefits were too great to pass by even for the richest royal dragons. This without mentioning the honor and glory of assisting the heirs in their quest. Felix being approached already put him in the eyes of everyone, but to reject the invitation? It made him desirable even more. Back in the courtroom, the clan head Kirsoon had called for an abrupt meeting with the rest of the officials after he was updated with what happened in the party. It's really hard to believe, but I don't think Prince Domino had a reason to lie. Clan head Kirsoon said. The officials nodded in agreement. If the Black Clan wants him in their team even though they had already other stronger candidates, this only means that he has something we don't know about it yet. Clan head Kirsoon narrowed his eyes, we need to get him in our team no matter what. We do agree too, but will he accept our recruitment even though he rejected the Black Clan's team? One of the officials doubted. Maybe he rejected them because he is waiting for our invitation. Another one suggested, he does have a good relationship with the princess. Perhaps, he felt that it would be improper to assist another clan instead of us. Enough guesses. Clan head Kirsoon ordered, call Anastasia and tell her to bring him here, we have to get to the bottom of this. Chapter 899 The Agreement L. 10 minutes later. Felix was escorted to courtroom by Anastasia and Selphie. Selphie, you can return if you like. Anastasia said while standing in front of the courtroom's door. No, I am staying here. Selphie shook her head. If she was given permission to enter with them, she wouldn't have hesitated to follow them in. We will be back soon. Felix patted her in the head gently before stepping inside. The moment the gate closed shut behind him, Felix focused on humongous round table and the many white dragons on it. They were all in their dragon forms, making them appear as intimidating as ever. Felix ignored the rest and kept his eyes affixed on the clan head Kirsoon, feeling a crippling authoritative pressure directed at him. Spiritual pressure. Felix knew instantly that he was being subjected to his spiritual pressure. It was much higher than his, making him understand that the clan head Kirsoon could literally kill him off if he went all out. Before he could think too deeply about clan head Kirsoon's motives, the pressure had dissipated akin to a gentle breeze. Mr. Felix, please join us. Clan head Kirsoon welcomed with a kind smile. I am truly honored to meet one of the top 10 strongest beings in the alliance. Felix bowed his head respectfully before walking towards the table. Since the table and the chairs were suspended in the air, Felix wore the symbiote suit for a split second before blinking on top of the chair. Then, he removed it and affixed his tuxedo while still standing above the chair's top rail. It was simply impossible for him to sit on it when the chair was big enough to accommodate the dragons. Before anything else, I would like to apologize with how the party went. Clan head Kirsoon sighed, we dragons can easily get agitated if something happened that affects our pride. When Felix told everyone that he had been invited by Prince Domino to his team, this was naturally going to rub them off in the wrong way. After all, they were trying their absolute best to get recruited to any team, yet they still had small hopes of getting approved. I don't mind. Felix smiled faintly, I have part of the blame too. I should have refrained from telling the truth. No, we dragons value nothing more than the truth. Kirsoon stressed. I guess we have something in common. Felix joked, making Asna roll her eyes at his shamelessness. The clan head and officials didn't see through Felix's facade as they smiled in approval. May I ask why I was summoned here? Felix inquired in a straightforward manner. We like to know your reason for rejecting Prince Domino's invitation. Clan head Kirsoon said bluntly, not trying to hide his intentions. I am simply not interested. Felix shrugged his shoulders, I want to spend the next few years in the galaxy in peace instead of involving myself in politics unrelated to me. That's understandable. Clan head Kirsoon nodded, knowing that Felix was right to feel this way since the ceremony could get pretty political in the blink of an eye. However, do you know everything about the ceremony? One of the officials asked. I know it's a ceremony held between the 4 royal clans for the sake of deciding on the next challenger for the Elder Dragon's position. Felix answered. This time, he was being truthful. His intel was limited about the ceremony since anything related to it was blocked by the Queen AI from leaving Icarius Galaxy. All he knew was that every century, the Elder Dragon must be challenged for his position by another dragon from the royal family. It was done like this, so the Elder Dragon wouldn't feel too complacent in his position and give up on seeking strength. At the same time, it was a chance for other dragons to dethrone the Elder Dragon and become the new leader of all dragons. Since the royal family was split into 4 clans, it wasn't easy to decide on a new challenger with simple conversations or by taking turns. Dragons respected strength fore and foremost. This meant that every century, only the strongest could be picked from the current batch of heirs. The way decided to achieve so was by holding the heirs ceremony every half a century. You are right, but even though it's called heirs ceremony, the 4 clans can send anyone they wanted to represent them. Clan head Kirsoon shared. If only the heirs were being sent every half a century, there would be no point from the ceremony in the first place since they would keep sending the same dragons over and over again. That's why all royal dragons could apply to be the team leaders or part of the team to represent their clans or even other clans. Nevertheless, the final decision still belonged to the clan heads. Unlike the previous cycles, this ceremony will be led by my daughter Anastasia, Prince Domino, Prince Arantis, and lastly Princess Kotseza. All of them are direct heirs of the clan heads, making the upcoming ceremony even more serious for us. An official said with a stern tone. I see. Felix nodded in understanding. He already knew that the White Clan must be desperate to win the ceremony. He had read that they almost never won a single ceremony. This tradition was going on for a long while now, God knows how much their losing streak had reached now. The fact that Anastasia would be representing them this time against other heirs meant that their lose would taste even worse. Honestly, we don't really care about challenging the Elder Dragon, we know that it is simply impossible for anyone to defeat him, don't even mention doing so with our healing sacred flames. Clan head Kirsoon smiled wryly. Felix had to agree with him. There were still recorded battles of the current Elder Dragon, completely dominating the platform and anyone in it. Although he had retired eons ago, he was still being challenged once in a while by one of the top 10 players in the platform, hoping to dethrone him. Alas, no one managed to achieve so. To make matters worse, the Elder Dragon never allowed his challengers to survive. This meant that the moment someone decided to challenge him in a battle for the number 1 spot, he better make sure to write his will beforehand. We know that you want to keep yourself out of the politics in our royal family, but we still wish that you can lend a hand to our clan. Clan head Kir soon stopped beating around the bush and finally came out with it. Naturally, it won't be free. One of the officials enticed, just with your participation, we will help you get what you desire. If you helped us win it, then our rewards would make you leave our galaxy without an ounce of regret. This without mentioning the sacred treasures and other goodies you would find in the dimensional pocket. You can trade them with imaginable treasures from any dragon you find. Felix knew that their offer was already too generous since most dragons were fighting for simply a chance to enter the dimensional pocket. In fact, most of them would have paid the clans anything as long as they were allowed entry. Who could blame them? The dimensional pocket was left by the ancestral dragon himself. It was filled with sacred treasures that were able to enhance their bloodline purity significantly. There were even cases of some Red Clan royal dragons taking them and being able to awaken unique new attributes. Naturally, this was merely a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence, but still, most dragons would pay anything to get their hands on this opportunity. If the news of Felix getting paid to participate in the ceremony, there would be definitely an outrage. Your offer is really tempting, but still. Felix shook his head, I have to decline. Chapter 900 The Agreement LL. Why? Clan head Kir soon frowned, is our offer too little? We can always negotiate. It's not that. Felix smiled faintly, I am seeking only one thing, and if you can give it to me, I will assure you that the next ceremony would belong to the White Clan. What is it? An official asked with a pleased smile, knowing that the White Clan could obtain anything in this galaxy. 20 ancestral dragon scales. Felix answered calmly. The instant the words came out of his mouth, the atmosphere had gotten tense and heavy all of a sudden. This was bound to happen when every dragon in the courtroom was eyeing Felix with a frigid stare. Do you think this is a game? Clan head Kir soon dropped the kind facade immediately and narrowed his dreadful slits at Felix like a predator watching a tiny prey before him. Take it back quickly, Felix. Anastasia yelled at Felix telepathically with a worried tone, fearing that he may not leave the courtroom in one piece. That's my request. Felix crossed his arms together and held his ground composedly, take it or leave it. This brat sure knows how to run his mouth. One of the officials scoffed, 20 scales? You don't deserve to even visit his burial. The rest of the officials followed along with their own snarkily remarks, feeling insulted by the thought of removing their own worshipped ancestors' scales and hand them over to a human. They knew that if the news ever gone out, they would be crucified by all the dragons around the universe. Do you even understand the severity of your request? Clan head Kir soon said coldly, if it wasn't for my daughter, you wouldn't be standing here anymore. Felix knew that he was being for real. What he requested was the same as asking a worshipper to remove a piece of his god and hand it to someone else. Such a blasphemous request was more than punishable. Elders, looks like you are misunderstanding something. Felix clarified, you will be giving me the scales only if I helped Sister Anastasia win the ceremony. If we lost, you don't need to give me anything at all. In fact, to pay for your investment, I will hand over all farmed sacred treasures from the dimensional pocket. Upon hearing so, the clan head Kir soon and official's expression had softened a little, they got to admit that his terms were quite enticing. Still, it wasn't enough to let them disfigure their ancestor for their gains. When Felix saw that they were still not convinced yet, he pushed harder, think about it carefully. At this point, which is more beneficial for the White Clan as a whole? 20 scales taken from thousands or restoring your clan's honor and dignity. As you mentioned already, your loss in the upcoming ceremony would suck even more since it would be a battle between clan heads' true heirs. Felix paused, many eyes would be on this ceremony, and if the White Clan didn't perform adequately yet again, they are bound to think lowly of you. I am not too informed about the dragon's culture, but even I know that strength is valued more than anything around here. Felix shook his head, no matter how better you turned the empire for everyone, you know deep down that not a single dragon would respect your clan like the others because of your perceived weak strength. Clan head Kirsun, officials, and even Anastasia couldn't help but contemplate his words silently. They wanted to retort back and call him ignorant, but Felix spat nothing but straight facts at them. In the dragon race, strength rule above all, period. Although they could hide behind the fact that their healing attribute was holding them back, no other dragon would bother to listen to them. That's because attributed dragons already had enough bloodline purity to boost their foundational strength above all red dragons. To make matters even worse for them, their ceremony teams could include dragons from other clans as long as the leader was a white dragon. Yet, they still lost almost 99% of their ceremony meetings. Seeing that he had everyone rethink their decisions, Felix went for the last push. If you recruited me, we can sign a contract to keep me quiet about our deal. As long as no one here leaks it, no one would bother to think that your portion of the ancestral was missing 20 scales. Upon hearing so, most of the officials finally had a change of heart. At the start, none of them bothered to even entertain the thought of agreeing to Felix. Now, they were actually considering doing so for the sake of their clan's future reputation. What do you think? Clan head Kirsun asked everyone telepathically. As much as I hate to admit it, the brat is right. One of the officials sighed, we can't spend the next 50 years with our heads buried in the sand again. I really don't want to meet the elder dragon with another defeat added to our belt. Same, it makes us looks like we have lost our touch in battles. I feel the same. Clan head Kirsun agreed. I can't deal with the other clan heads if we get our asses swept yet again. There was nothing much that mattered to the dragons besides their pride. As the Dragon Slayer said, he will be given the scales only after he wins it for us. If he lost, we will be getting his sacred treasures at least. An official added, it's a win-win situation for us as long as we can part with 20 scales. Honestly, we already defiled the ancestral corpse by splitting it into 4 portions. Clan head Kirsun smiled bitterly, removing 20 scales for a good cause shouldn't matter much to us anymore. We're already going to get beaten to pulp by the ancestor in the spirit realm. If the ancestral dragon corpse was still intact, clan head Kirsun wouldn't have even entertained the thought, regardless of the stakes. After all, the ancestral corpse would be protected by the 4 clans, making it impossible to even remove a single scale without causing a scene. But now? As long as everyone in this courtroom keep his mouth shut, nothing much would have changed from their lives. So, what do you vote? I say let's give it a try. Me too, for the brat to have such a confidence and even attempted to get recruited by Prince Domino, he must definitely have something to rely on. I concur. One by one, the officials cast their votes in favor of Felix's request. In the end, only 3 officials abstained from voting as they still felt that it was a blasphemous action. Unfortunately, their opinions meant nothing after the majority agreed to go for it. Let's test him out first and check his reason for wanting the scales. Dragon Slayer, are you going to *CK us over? Clan head Kirsun narrowed his eyes coldly, applying intense spiritual pressure on him. Felix was forced to have his knees bent over from the sheer pressure on his shoulders. He felt like a god was placing a palm on him and trying to squinch him like a bug. You have my word that I am going to try my absolute best. Felix assured with a stern tone. Clan head Kirsun kept staring at him for a few seconds, wanting to see if his resolve was nothing but a gaslight. Alas, he found no such thing. Felix was in it for real since he knew that there wouldn't be a better chance to get his hands on the ancestral scales. We will trust you for now. Clan head Kirsun removed his pressure at once and said, but, we still have to test your capabilities and see what you are capable of. Not now. Felix shook his head, the ceremony will begin in 4 years. I prefer being tested before it starts, so I will be at my best shape. If I don't convince you by then, you can always replace me with a snap of a finger. There was no way Felix would allow himself to get tested at the moment. He knew that his strength hadn't developed much from his last appearance in the event. In other words, his bluff would be called out after they find out that he had nothing special to rely on. Thankfully, his reasoning was accepted by the clan head and the officials, as they also knew that it was too early to make such preparation. Before we conclude this, we need to know your purpose of wanting our ancestral scales, 20 of them nevertheless. Clan head Kirsoon asked. I can't tell you, and I would rather not lie as well. Felix guaranteed, but, I can sign a contract right now to put your minds at ease that the missing ancestral scales won't bring any trouble to you. Felix refused to expose the fact that Elder Cyclope was making him a divine weapon. The fewer people knew about it, the better for him. Clan head Kirsoon glanced at the officials and saw that most of them weren't pleased with Felix's refusal to share his use of the ancestral scales. Still, they would rather not cancel the deal because of it. Let's sign the contracts.